Hello and welcome to the latest episode, a rather unscheduled episode of the Ask Abhijit show. We're doing this on a Sunday. Uh, I had to postpone it because I was kind of unwell. So thank you to those of all those of you who sent in your wishes. I really appreciate that. I'm much better now. And here we go. So let us see who all is there on the live chat. I can see Geopolitical Dube. I can see Shamik Bringi Dev, Shailesh Naik, Daksh Vora, Joy Hind, Joy Nagaland, Animesh Paul, Somen Gaurai, Om Bekerikar, Shri Ramchandraya Namaha, Daksh, Global Citizen, Shogun Ajinkya Pawar, Vansh Gada, Abhi Gaikwar, God Was Alive, Yan Kumar Bujel, Mystic SK, Saint Crocodile, Mahita Bushetti, Mr. Jam, Sharma, Joy Singh, Vikash XN, Heer Kumar Patel, Mr. 88ers, Vansh Gada, Geopolitical Dubai from Indore, Himanshu Mehta, Shivansh Shankar, Roshi Shetty, Jayesh Singh, Anonymous Scientist, Kushwaha Edits, McLevin, Mystic SK, Mr. Jam, Vamshi Kalem, Aditya Singh, Brijesh, Light Yagami, Harsh Abhijit M, Alan J. Victor, Hitanshu Mehta, Naresh Motha, Unknown, Gaurish KB, Samarth Tripathi, Chetan Aradhya, Sagar Ghare. Who else do we have? Ameya Rupal, Kakashi Hatake, Chatresh Kashyap, Sagar Thorat, Prasad Dalal, Pranay Paul from Kolkata, Parikshit VG, Shivansh Shankar, and everybody else. So thank you so much for being on this live chat. And let us see what questions we have. Please get going. Let's have the questions. I'll take this. I'll make it as long as possible. And yeah, maybe we'll have another 3 hour session. Let's see what else. What questions do we have? I'll obviously first take the live. What do we call it? Super chats. Kumar Kanish says downfall of tech innovation in science, medical, and many started before Arabic or and Turkic invasion. That is that a question or is that a statement? It's a question. So, did the downfall of tech innovation start before all this stuff that made us susceptible as previous attempts had failed? No, it is not the downfall of something that was the cause of the success of the Turkic invasions. It was not that. The cause of the success of the Arabic and Turkic invasions was the lack of political unity in India at that particular point in time. We did not have a single empire that ruled us, a single emperor that ruled us. The Mauryan era was a time when we had a single empire that ruled over the whole subcontinent. The Gupta era was another era when you had a single empire that ruled over the entire subcontinent. During the time when the Turks and the Arabs started invading, Arabs first, then Turks, we were a fragmented subcontinent. We were a single civilization with lots of different kingdoms. And that's why that succeeded. The tech innovation, science, etc., was going on pretty well. There was no downfall in that. Absolutely not at all. We still had the great universities and all that. So there was no such issue as such. It was the lack of political unity that was the cause of our downfall. Shailesh Naik says, tell us more about Bajirao Peshwa of the Maratha Empire. Peshwa Bajirao the First. He was born when? Around the beginning of the 18th century, right? And he lived only 38, 39 years. And he was the Peshwa who established the supremacy of the Maratha Empire in India. And yeah, I mean, I haven't studied his life and history in great detail, but that's what I can tell you. The greatest of the Maratha Peshwas, and it is his career and his string of incredible victories over all the foreign occupiers of India that led to the Maratha supremacy and the revival of Indian civilization and the establishment of a single empire over India. So yeah, that's Bajirao Peshwa the Great. Jayesh Singh, thank you so much. Thank you very much, sir. So now let's take some questions from the regular chat. Um, Shri Ramchandra Namaha says, what is electronic warfare? Examples. Electronic warfare. For example, if you have a fighter, let's say you have fighter planes going over Pakistan, you want to destroy some more terrorist hideouts and terrorist infrastructure. So let's say you want to send fighter planes into Pakistan. But what if the Pakistanis, what if the Pakistanis will? Now let me think of a proper scenario for this. electronic warfare. So there are multiple kinds of electronic warfare. One is when a fighter, when an adversarial aircraft comes into your territory and wants to attack your targets, you interfere with their electronics so that they don't get a proper view of the battle space. Their radars don't work properly. Their guidance systems get jammed, and their missiles are not able to locate the targets. They're not able to access the GPS or whatever is happening. That is one example of electronic warfare. That happens. That's a defensive measure, for example, when you are defending against an enemy. Then when you are actually going and you are attacking the enemy, for example, then you want to jam their systems, their defensive systems. So you may have some electronic warfare aircraft that come with your fighter aircraft, and who will jam all your enemies' defensive infrastructure and their electronic systems. Then you have systems like, for example, uh, anti-radiation missiles. So there are. So how does the Pakistani air defense system detect Indian aircraft? They have radars, right? So what are radars? They send out electromagnetic signals. That's radiation, electromagnetic radiation. So if you have ARM missiles, anti-radiation missiles, these missiles will look exactly for such transmissions, and they will home in on the source of the signals and wipe them out. So these are different examples of electronic warfare. Right. Okay. Prashant says Pakistan General 100 died in BrahMos that entered half a meter hole. Is it really happen? Yeah, it apparently. Look, I don't know how many 100 generals. I don't think Pakistan has 100 generals. What one hears is that they had a number of officers, maybe 40, maybe 100, whatever it is. But yes, you had an entrance that was about 45 centimeters wide, apparently, and the BrahMos hit that. So as you can see, I mean, try hitting. Those of you who have played cricket, it's a 22-yard pitch, right? And you're bowling, and when you're practicing, you put a coin on the other end of the pitch where you want the ball to pitch, and try and hit that. How you'll very quickly see how difficult it is to accurately hit that one coin on the pitch. That's over 22 yards. That's about 20 meters, right? The BrahMos is launched over distances of hundreds of kilometers, and then you hit a target that is 45 centimeters wide. That's what we did. So outstanding. I think it really happened. Yes, all these facts are slowly emerging out in the public domain. It's great to see this. Shiva Rajput says, if Subhash Chandra Bose was PM, India might have followed a China-like model. Fast growth, less democracy. I mean, just like the CCP, India might have followed that for 20 years, maybe more, maybe less. Mr. Bose's plan was to do that for 20 years. So India would have been a totally different beast if Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose had become the leader of India. But we need not have had a prime minister at that point in time. He would have been the president of India. Why would he need to be a prime minister at the head of a council of ministers and with a Westminster style system? It would have been a proper clean dictatorship. Okay, with the king at the top and a council of ministers who will do what they're told and who will give their inputs to the king and that sort of thing. That's what it would have been like. He would not have been the prime minister. He would have been the emperor of India or the dictator of India. Fast growth, less democracy, like the CCP. That was his plan, but as you know, didn't work out. Ritik Pawar says, why is it that throughout history, one man often thinks differently and changes the world? What sets them apart from everybody else? It's just the way it is. It's many people disagree with this perspective, the great man theory of history. But see, most people are mediocre. The term mediocre means average. It doesn't mean bad. It means average. Most people are average because that's what average means, right? It means like everybody else. And it's always the 0.1% who think really differently and who have the genius to do things which others can't. And that genius is what's required for real growth and real change in history. So that's just the way it is. It's always the ordinary person can't really take the world by throat and force it to change. They don't want things to change. The ordinary person is happy with the way things are. It's only those small number of people who are not satisfied with the shape of things and who want things to be better. They are the ones who change the world. Sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for not so good, but that's how it works. What sets them apart? What sets them apart is that they are definitely more intelligent, and they have way more perseverance and willpower, and they have agency. They will not take no for an answer. They will find a way to get things done. That's what sets them apart. Okay, Dheeraj Kamath says, has America successfully infiltrated India now with the approval of Starlink? What can India do to safeguard its sovereignty? Yes, with the approval of Starlink, and once the Starlink beams start, and once Starlink starts beaming its signals into India, yes, it's infiltration of India. Absolutely. What can India do to safeguard its sovereignty? Disapprove Starlink. Tell them you no longer have the license. Sorry. Anyway, this is a good time to disapprove Starlink, to revoke the license, because Elon Musk is no longer on favorable terms with Donald Trump. This is a good time to do it. So I would, recommend to the government of India, grab this opportunity. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fighting like little children, like school children. They are fighting like recently broken up lovers. And they're fighting very publicly, and they're throwing all kinds of very dirty allegations at each other. And Donald Trump is the president. He'll be happy if somebody does, if something like this is done. He'll be okay with it. So I would say this is a great time for India to use whatever technical reason or whatever it is to say that, sorry, to Starlink, your license, whatever was approved, is now disapproved. I think it's the right time to do that. And then long term, what India should do is India should have its own version of a satellite internet beaming satellite constellation, which would be launched by ISRO. And maybe if the geo folks are not willing to do it, maybe somebody else will be willing to do it. Maybe Adani will do it. I think Adani as a company is way more aligned with India's national interest than the other companies. If you look at Adani's track record, they have this track record, long-standing track record of always taking up projects that align with India's national and geopolitical interests. So maybe something like this needs to happen, right? That's what India needs to do to safeguard its sovereignty and edge Starlink out internationally, globally, by putting up a better alternative to Starlink. That's what India needs to do. Maybe this can be done over a 5-year time horizon. Not longer than that. First step, please revoke this license that you've given to Starlink. Mr. 88 says, thoughts on MAGA civil war. I mean, it's crazy. Donald Trump is probably the most unpresidential president in US history. So juvenile, so childish. And Elon Musk is the same kind of individual. Extremely big egos. And they're fighting like children in public, fighting on Twitter. I mean, is that how you behave? And Elon Musk, both have a certain point to what they are doing. I mean, Donald Trump is, I'm the president of the US and you better get in line, and so on and so forth, right? And Elon Musk is that, you know what, I am way richer than you. I'm way more successful than you. You're just a real estate developer, somebody who constructed buildings in New York City. I am a tech genius. I have Tesla, I have Starlink, I have this, I have that, I have Solar City, and so on and so forth. I am the richest man in probably in the past 2000 whatever time, right? And so on. So I am better than you, I'm greater than you, and that sort of thing. So both have these big egos, and Elon Musk is unhappy that he has been elbowed out of the cabinet. He no longer has access to the White House. The moment he's out, he starts mooning about Trump. It's incredible. If he knew that Trump, let's say, like he claims, the allegation he's made is that Trump features on the Epstein files. Well, if he knew that, then why didn't he speak about this before? It was all fine as long as Trump gave him what he wanted. The moment Trump doesn't give him what he wants, he'll reveal this. I mean, don't you have any principles? If he really is featured on the Epstein files, whether Trump is on your side or not, you should reveal it. So yeah, it's entertaining, it's fun, and maybe there's something in it for us. Bharatiya says, if nothing can exceed light speed in space, do we know that if the space itself is expanding faster than light speed, any scientifically testable data supporting this saw math equations? If nothing can exceed light speed in space, do we know if the space itself is expanding faster? Space itself is expanding faster than light speed. There is something called the Hubble constant, H0, which has a certain value. Let's quickly Google up the value. What's the value of the Hubble constant? And that will tell you what this is: an experimentally observed number. It's not something that comes out of theory, it comes out of experimental observations. Hubble constant. What's the value? H0. Arey bhai, what's the value? Hubble tension we don't want to talk about. Okay, there are two values. One is around 60 and one is around 70 something. Okay, I'm not interested in the Hubble constant at this point in time. Value or values. Okay, 64 and 70, 67 and 74. Okay, there are two values. That's the whole matter of the Hubble tension. We'll not go into that. But let's say it's around 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. Okay, around 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. So the more megaparsecs you add to it, the faster the space is expanding. This is experimentally observed. There are no math equations that tell us this. Okay, so if you extrapolate this over very large distances, you will find that space itself is expanding faster than light. Superluminal expansion, and yet it does not in any way break the laws of physics. It doesn't break the theory of relativity, because it is not something that is expanding inside of space or traveling inside of space faster than light, which is not allowed. It is space-time itself that's expanding faster than light, which is allowed. So this is all based on experimental evidence of the redshifts of galaxies that are as far away as can be observed. And and there's the Hubble tension issue, which is a whole different matter, which we'll not discuss here. Siddesh's financial consultancy says, my NL friend, NL, okay, says they were always Christian and weren't converted. What's NL? Nagaland, I suppose. Nagaland says that, okay, let's assume it's Nagaland. He says that they were always Christian, they weren't converted. Can you shed light as to how long ago the Nagaland conversion started, and how long does it take to forget your ancestors were converted? It takes 5 minutes to forget your ancestors were converted, as long as there's the right kind of financial incentive. Apart from that, it takes maybe 2 generations to forget, right? So what happens when you're converted? What happens? First of all, you have to burn all the statues of your gods, burn them all. Then you have to say that I only believe in the Lord and Savior, whatever his name is. And you have to kiss the Bible, and you have to do Bible classes every day, and so on and so forth, on a very regular basis, proper indoctrination and brainwashing. And then you have to publicly acknowledge to yourself over and over again that my ancestors were barbarians, because they were polytheists, and so on. And that happens over and over. So after a couple of generations, there is this tremendous hatred these people have for their ancestry and their ancestral culture. And they just don't want to think about it, right? And so then they will start claiming that we were always Christian. We were Christian for the past 3,000 years, even before Christianity existed, they'll say. The convergence in the Northeast started about, in Nagaland, it started mostly after Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister of India. Before that, the British were trying to do things, but after Nehru became the Prime Minister, he first of all banned any Hindus from going to Nagaland and the Far East. He completely isolated the what we call the Northeast of India from the rest of the country. He put a stop on all development in the place, which gave rise to insurgencies all over the place, because when there's no growth, there's no development, there's no food, there's no prospects for your children, what will you do, right? So that's what Mr. Nehru did. And then he opened the door for American Baptist missionaries to go all over the place. So after the 1940s, after around 1950, by about 1980, 1990, the whole of Nagaland mostly was converted. There are very few people who still practice the indigenous culture. So imagine from 1950 until now, how many years has it been? 80 years? But the full extent of Christianization happened by around the 1980s. That's about 50 years ago. So that's how long it takes to forget that your ancestors were converted. That's very sad. They've destroyed the beautiful indigenous culture of Nagaland. It's very sad. It's a tragedy. It's cultural genocide that was done at the behest of the great, magnificent Mr. Nehru. Kumar Kanishk says, why haven't we explored deep sea organisms and studied them extensively about their biology? Can India be a leader in this studies exploring our deep ocean? Look, I'll tell you what. When it comes to studies, scientific studies, which explore the deep ocean, it takes a lot of money to do that. So it's only viable if there is a proper financial incentive, a return on investment. Let's say you want to study the deep ocean 4 minerals, maybe nuggets of various kinds of metals. Well, that's fun, and you get money out of it. I mean, there's a return on investment because, for example, nickel or whatever other metals which may not be so readily available on the surface if they're of the planet, if they're available under ocean, under the water, on the surf, on the bottom of the ocean. Well, then prospecting for such things makes sense, financial economic sense. If you're digging for, let's say, oil 1,000 meters under the ocean's surface, then it makes sense because oil has a proven financial value. But when it comes to studying deep sea organisms, it's going to cost the same amount of money to study them, go all the way down there and have all these all the instruments and all that, which will look for the organisms and catalog them and observe their behavior, record everything. It will take a tremendous amount of money. But what's the return on investment? Essentially zero, right? I would love it to happen. I am driven by a sense of curiosity about the world and nature and all that. But who's gonna pay for that? I mean, I won't be able to sustainably pay for that for months and years. I may be able to pay for it for a week, maybe, and then I'll say, okay, it's gonna burn a hole through my pockets, right? And I'm not gonna getting any return on that investment. So, do you understand? It doesn't make sense that way. Any such research needs to give you a return on investment. Without that, it doesn't make financial sense, and then nobody will fund it, especially in a developing country like India. Shamit Bringidev, welcome and thank you so much, sir. Captain, okay, I do not read that. What stop US from using Taiwan and Tibet against China? Well, first of all, the US doesn't control Tibet. It doesn't own Tibet. It has absolutely zero influence or leverage on Tibet. China completely controls Tibet. Completely, 100%. So that's number one. Number two, Taiwan. The US is using Taiwan against China as best as it can. Beyond that, what can it do? Launch a strike on China? China will be wiped out. Taiwan will be wiped out. Let us think a little from a little more mature perspective. The US is using Taiwan as best as it can against China. Please throw light on the education system of Japan. I hope I'm much better now. Thank you. Now, the education system of Japan is extremely rigorous. It is based on a tremendous amount of study, a lot of memorization, but also much higher quality system than India's. I mean, you actually learn stuff there. But one of the problems in the education system of Japan is that the students are very horribly overburdened. I mean, there is this. I remember reading this somewhere in the like 20-30 years ago. There's this saying in Japan, okay, when you are let's say in high school, study 5 hours, fail. Sleep 5 hours, fail. Sleep 4 hours, pass. That's how it is. It is crushing. It's a tremendous burden, and this is one of the reasons why Japan has such a low birth rate, because people get burned out by all these things. Jayesh Singh says, what's happening in LA in the past 48 hours? Listen, I have no idea. I am not a breaking news guy who's going to scan the news every 15 minutes and see what's happening. I have no idea what's happening in LA the past 48 hours. I look at things from a wider lens and a bigger perspective. I get these questions from people a lot of the times, especially when I go as a guest in podcast. Oh, do you know what happened today morning? Oh, you don't know? I don't know. I don't care. I don't look at breaking news every 15 minutes. So I'm sorry, I'm not aware of what's happening in LA the past 48 hours. If it's something important, it'll come to my notice because I have a system for getting the right kind of information, the kind of information I require. As you know, I have this new podcast of which 3 episodes have aired thus far. It's called Geostrategy with Abhijit Chavda, in which I look at the most important events that are happening in the world. So I have a certain set of filters that ensure that only the right kind of events come to my notice. High signal, high value events. There's a lot of noise that's happening in the world. Oh, this thing happened here and that thing happened, and this person said this and that person said that, and so on. So I'm not sure. I don't look at news every 15 minutes or every whatever it is. But if the events in LA, whatever it is sufficiently important, it will be brought to my notice, and then I'll be able to tell you about what's happening. But as of right now, I am not aware, and I'm not gonna go in. Okay, let's do it since you've asked. Let's quickly take a look at what's happening in LA, Los Angeles. What's happening? Angeles. Immigration protests, is it? Okay, immigration protests. Okay, blah blah blah, etc., etc. 21 hours ago, etc., and so on. 2,000 National Guards. Okay, some kind of immigration protests are happening in Los Angeles. Well, we will see if it's something important and geopolitically relevant. I think it's a domestic issue in the US, but let's see. Geopolitical Dubai says, who destroyed Lalitaditya's Parihaspur? I have no idea. No idea. Very specific question. Lalitaditya's Parihaspur. One second. Let me see. Lalitaditya Parihaspur. Lalitaditya Parihaspur. What? Parihaspura. Founded the city of Parihaspura, etc., declared and so on. Looks like, according to what this AI overview says, it looks like it just declined over time. Okay, I don't know. I haven't studied every single dynasty in the greatest amount of detail. So yeah, I don't know. Don't have the right answer for you. Sorry. MK says, when Poland can reject immigrants, why can't the French do that despite being quasi-independent? Maybe because Monsieur Macron himself is not willing to reject immigrants, and maybe because what you call immigrants are now French citizens. The French, when it comes to not illegal but legal immigration into France, it's been happening for the longest time, even way before the rest of Europe became fell victim to all this. The French occupied North Africa, colonized North Africa for the longest time, and a lot of these North Africans, they moved, especially Algerians, etc. They moved into various parts of France, especially in southern France, especially the Côte d'Azur region, especially which is the great city, Côte d'Azur. Let's go to the map and I'll tell you immediately which city it is. Okay, it is one of the great cities, a beautiful city, Côte d'Azur. How come I don't remember it? One of the great novels features that city. Marseille, of course, Marseille. A tremendous amount of immigrants in Marseille. It's more like an immigrant city than a French city today. Like, that's what they say. So these folks are French citizens. Once you give someone citizenship, you can't throw them out. And the biggest problem the French have is not illegal immigrants, it's the citizens. Okay? The French, they can't do a thing about this now. It's too late. Sharma says, how does the Roman Empire still control the world via the Freemasons, Jesuits, City of London, Washington, D.C., Rhodes, Miller apparatus, etc.? Listen, this is what they call conspiracy theories. There is absolutely zero evidence, zero hard evidence, zero provable evidence that all of this is happening, which doesn't mean it's not happening. But you see, I'll tell you something. The Anglo-Saxons, I've said this a few times, the Anglo-Saxons, one of the greatest and most remarkable things they did, okay, the Anglo-Saxons, is that they hid their instruments of power. Historically, empires would flaunt their instruments of power. If you go to Parshvapur, the ancient capital of the Persians, they displayed their instruments of power everywhere. It's a destroyed city. Alexander destroyed it in one night. He burned it. Alexander the Greek. But the city still exists. You can still see the scorch marks, the burn marks. You can see how great it used to be. And the Persians, our Persian cousins, they flaunted the instruments of power that they had. In India, we had empires that would flaunt and display their instruments of power. The Romans had these great columns, the victory columns, etc., to flaunt the instruments of power that, these many legions we have that did so and so things, and these many ships, these many galleys, and so on. But the Anglo-Saxons, they have hidden their instruments of power. They control the entire world, but they hide the fact that they do. They occupy Japan and South Korea militarily, but they have convinced the entire world that these nations are vibrant democracies. And they control the entire West, the western part of Europe through NATO and the EU. These nations have essentially no sovereignty at all, but they have convinced the world that these are beautifully sovereign nations with vibrant democracies, and these nations are more democratic than nations like India. This is the power of propaganda. So that's what the Anglo-Saxons have done. The Anglo-Saxon Empire, which is now based in Washington, D.C., it controls the world, but it hides its instruments of power. And it may have connections with whatever vestiges are left of the Roman Empire. Some vestiges are indeed left of the Roman Empire. I mean, the Western Roman Empire. I mean, the Roman Empire was destroyed by the Vatican, by the Church, right? But then the Church became the inheritor of the power, the instruments of power of the Roman Empire. It happened gradually over time. And then it was the Church that was the greatest power in Europe for the longest time. And some of it may still exist. And some of it may happen via various ways and means, including some of the things that you have mentioned. But there is absolutely no way of proving it. And that's why these things are called conspiracy theories. It doesn't mean they're false, but there's no way of proving it. So that's where you have it. That's what you have. Okay, Feminist Slayer says some research papers are claiming that cockroach milk that cockroach milk has higher protein content than cow milk. Is this some kind of propaganda? Who funds these studies? I don't know who funds these studies, but they are enemies of the human species, I would say. Okay, why cockroach milk? Why? Ugh. Yeah, I've heard of these things. I've never read any of these research papers because I value my time. My time is super valuable, believe me. If somebody wants my time, it costs a lot of money. So my time is valuable. I don't waste it on reading such research papers. So I've not read it. I've only seen the headlines, and that's enough for me. Ugh, I'm done with that. So that's nonsense. And no human should be made to drink such things. So this is some kind of new world BS. And please stay out of all this, I would say. Parveen Singh says, according to you, when will Operation Sindoor resume again? There's no way of predicting when that will resume. The highest probability is that for the next 3 to 6 months, there's going to be, increased diplomatic tensions between India and Pakistan and water tensions. But there's less than a 10% likelihood of war fighting happening again, starting again over the next 3 months, I would say. Beyond that, we'll see. The Americans are very, 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 sensitive about Pakistan. Yeah. Because it looks like the Americans were controlling the Noor Khan Air Base. And even Pakistani personnel were not allowed inside. And that now raises the question about what was it that the Pakistanis tested in 1998? The 5 or 6 nuclear bombs they tested. What was that? I am more and more of the opinion that these were American nuclear bombs, which tells you that America seems to be India's number one enemy now. Claiming to be friends, but actions are those of enemies. Vishal, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. MK says, is not accepting illegal immigrants of Poland by Poland a concession for being the next Ukraine? It looks like that. Poland is being positioned as the next frontline state when it comes to a potential future hypothetical westward military incursion. So NATO and the West are tom-tomming this theory that Russia is now, that Putin wants to recreate the USSR and is going to, very quickly, very soon start marching westwards. Which means that after Ukraine, Poland comes in line. In case you want to see, let's take a look at the map. Here is the map. We go to the right place immediately. So when it comes to the geography of Europe, Eastern Europe, you have Russia, then you have nations like the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, etc. Then you have Belarus and Ukraine, and westwards of Belarus and Ukraine, you have Poland. Now, Belarus, you can say, is kind of a quasi-extension of Russia. Russia even is said to have tactical nuclear warheads on Belarus territory. So, and Ukraine could fall to Russia, depending on what Mr. Putin decides to do with the war. So then what comes next in line is Poland mainly. It's a big bulwark. You also have small nations like Slovakia and Hungary, but the big one is Poland. So Poland is now being weaponized. The West is now trying to turn Poland into the next great military power in Europe. And I think the concession they've given to Poland for that, for being the next in line, is that okay, we'll allow you to not accept illegal immigrants. So yeah. Shiva Rajput says, "Do we need a right-wing political party?" I think there's space for all kinds of political parties in India. I don't think India has a single far-right political party. We only have centrist political parties at best. It's not a criticism; it's just an observation. Okay. So there's no harm in having a more far-right political party to cater for the political views of some people who are not possibly being represented at this point in time. We do have far-left political parties in India. I'll not name them, but we know that they exist. But it looks like we don't have a single far-right political party. So what's the harm in having a properly balanced political spectrum? There's no harm in having that. So yeah, it's not a bad thing to have. Vishal says, "Can you explain how modern dictatorship will be?" What would a modern dictatorship look like? It will look like, look, I can give you 3 examples. One is North Korea. North Korea is a vassal of a bigger dictatorship, which is China. So North Korea is said to be a very repressive nation. Just one family rules the country. The grandfather used to rule it. Then the father used to rule it. Now the son is ruling it. And his family controls things. Kim Jong-un's most trusted advisor is his sister. And his uncles and aunts and other family members are part of the inner circle. So it's a family-run system. And their only patron is Mr. Xi Jinping. And they also have an alliance with Mr. Vladimir Putin. And it's said to be a very repressive country in which no criticism of the ruling elite is allowed, and so on and so forth. So that's one model of a dictatorship. Okay, completely militarized nation, and so on. The second model is China, a one-party state where there is some space for dissent these days and disagreement, but overall, if you step too far beyond the gray line, the gray zone, then you will be taken care of by the Chinese Communist Party, and there's no coming back from that. And yeah, in China, there's the great censorship wall, the great internet firewall, and all that. But Chinese citizens do go outside the country and study in the West and so on, and do come back to China, and there is still patriotism in China. And the social contract in China is that we will remain a one-party system, but but in exchange for that, for the people of China agreeing to having only one party ruling the country is a dictatorship. In exchange for that, we will give you the best possible living standards, and we will make China a great nation. That's the social contract. So that's a second model of dictatorship. The third model of dictatorship is a hidden dictatorship. That's the United States. It's a two-party system. Okay, the other political parties that may exist are irrelevant. It's a two-party system, but both parties. The two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, have very different views on domestic politics and governance, but they have the same outlook when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to economic policy externally, and so on. So it's essentially a mono-party system. You have one-party system masquerading as a two-party democracy. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who is the president of the US. I mean, when you had Biden, everyone knew that Biden wasn't running the country, and neither was Kamala Harris mentally competent to run the country. So somebody was running the country from behind the scenes. So that's the clear hallmark of a hidden dictatorship. And right now, Trump is supposedly running the country. He's upending the entire economic scene globally. He's doing tremendous amounts of damage, and it looks like he has been given that mandate by whoever runs the country to do that. Otherwise, he won't be allowed to do it. So that's a third model of what a dictatorship could look like. A dictatorship masquerading as a vibrant democracy. So yeah, that's 3 different models. Simply a Web says, why Ambedkar fell for I have absolutely no idea, sir. Absolutely. I have not studied Dr. Ambedkar, and I'm not going to take questions about domestic politics, like I've clearly said in the thing. So I have no idea. No. Please compare China versus India independence movement. The Chinese independence movement. Well, the Chinese independence movement was a civil war between the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party. The Indian independence movement was smashed and destroyed in 1857. Let me repeat, the Indian independence movement was smashed and destroyed in 1857. After that, there was a fake independence movement, which was stage managed by the British. And at the end of the day, in 1947, we were given a quasi independence. It was a transfer of power from one set of crooks to another set of crooks. Their hand-picked crooks were given power, and nothing changed in India after independence. The same systems continued. In China, everything changed. So very different, tremendously different. Akshit Pandey says, can we expect Nepal and Bhutan back in the motherland? Listen, imagine Nepal becomes part of India. Then we will apply Indian secularism on Nepal. Do you want that to happen? Or would you rather prefer Nepal to become a Hindu Rashtra again? I would prefer Nepal to become a Hindu Rashtra again, to have its monarchy restored. If you give me the choice, Nepal becomes a monarchy and a Hindu Rashtra, or Nepal becomes a part of Bharat, India. Not Bharat. Right now, India is not Bharat. India is India right now. I would take monarchy. I would take Nepal becomes a monarchy and a Hindu Rashtra and remains independent from India, with the same understanding that we have with open borders and all that. I would prefer that right now than imposing the Indian version of secularism on Nepal. Bhutan also, I don't want to see Indian secularism imposed on Bhutan. It's a toxic form of secularism. The same goes for Sri Lanka. Arsh Dogra says, how can India benefit from the recent NATO increase in military budget? Or Big Daddy US will not allow any Indian companies to make any deal with NATO countries? Look, NATO countries can only buy US weapons. Please understand this. It's the biggest scam they've been running. You create wars and all these tremendous problems in the world, and then you sell weapons everywhere. Why would NATO allow Indian companies to sell weapons to NATO countries? No, they can only buy American weapons. They will never allow Indian companies to make any deals with NATO countries. So, but India is on track to become a major defense exporter. And we will export to countries that are aligned geopolitically with us. We'll sell to Armenia. We may sell to Russia. We may sell to all the Southeast Asian nations. We will sell to African nations if required. We may sell to nations in Latin America. We have tremendous weapons. We have battle-tested weapons. Weapons that have bested American and Chinese systems. Okay? So India is on track to become a major defense exporter. But the NATO nations will not benefit from that because the US won't allow this to happen. Here Kumar Patel says ECE, CE branch. Which branch is more AI proof for the future? What is ECE? What is CE? Okay, I'll have to Google this. I have no idea what that is. And not sure if it falls within geopolitical history or science, but let's see. ECE and CE. What is that? Electrical and computer engineering, CE. Listen, I don't have the answer to this question. I don't know. I despise India's education system. I am not aware of all the complexities in the Indian education system and all the different branches that they have. So I am the last person who should be asking these questions. I am not the right person. I don't look into all these things. I despise the Indian education system, which is rotten to the core. So I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to your question. Anonymous scientist says, is the US hiding outcomes of Operation Sundial? ? Why ? Okay, another term which is not ringing a bell for me. What is Operation Sundial? Operation Sundial. What is that? Operation Sundial. Operation Sundial. Sundial weapon. One of two massive nuclear bombs planned for testing, etc. Etc. It was gigatons, 100 gigatons, if built and detonated. Look, as far as we know, the largest nuclear weapon that has ever been detonated atmospherically or anywhere else is the Tsar Bomba, which had a 50 megaton yield. The Sundial thing, which says gigaton, clearly it's not been tested. No, if it was tested, then the world would have known. So as far as I understand, no, they're not hiding it. I don't think it ever happened. 100 gigaton bomb. I mean, no matter where you are in the world, you'll notice. Okay, Jagan says SAR. Tsar, your opinion regarding Starlink agreement with India government, will it further complicate and compromise national data security? Why did Elon buy Mast and Donald Trump fool the entire world with the fight? Okay, you got to take the possibility very seriously that maybe it's a fake fight, maybe it's a engineered fight to achieve certain outcomes. So fool the world, make the world believe that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fighting. They don't get along with each other, and then pull what they call it, Uno reverse card or something. Maybe it's a possibility, so we have to be careful. But maybe it's a true fight. Maybe it's a real fight, and it's something that people could have seen coming potentially. What's my opinion about Starlink? I've spoken about this so many times. I think it's a tremendously rotten agreement. It's terrible for India's national security. It's terrible for India's sovereignty. Why is it terrible for India's sovereignty? Imagine three scenarios. One, terrorists in Kashmir. Second, terrorists in the Maoist-infested Red Belt. Third, cookie terrorists in Manipur. Okay? Now, let's say the terrorists are doing whatever terrorists do. So you impose a internet blackout for 48 hours so that they can't communicate with each other. In the meanwhile, you go and neutralize them. But what if you impose an internet blackout, but Starlink keeps on beaming over there? Then the terrorists will be able to coordinate with each other and do whatever they need to do and evade the law enforcement agencies and whatever. Terrible for India's sovereignty. If you call up Elon Musk and say switch off for 48 hours, he'll say, no, I won't do it. Then what will you do? Or let's say in some part of India, in some city, there's rioting. There are people who tend to riot for some reason in this country. And for that, let's say you impose a 48-hour blackout, but Starlink is coming. So what do you do then? You are kind of losing your sovereignty. I think it's a tremendously bad agreement. I think we should revoke the license that has apparently been given. And now is a good time to revoke it when Elon Musk and Trump are fighting. Revoke the license. And it's okay. We don't need your goddamned Tesla gigafactories or whatever in India. We'll make our own gigafactories. Okay, Captain, whatever that is. I mean, what is stopping India from raising Taiwan and Tibet? What is stopping India from raising Taiwan? What is the point of going blah blah with words? The only things that matter in geopolitics are actions. What is the point of giving a muh tod jawab verbally? This is what Indians don't understand. It's because of this debate culture that we have. This debate culture in various YouTubers in India. They think that by giving strong words and statements, you've defeated the enemy. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Your strong words are not going to defeat the enemy. It's going to have no effect whatsoever. It's going to make you look like a fool. So please grow up, people. Please grow up a little bit. Especially if you watch this channel, please grow up a little. That's the overall objective of the channel, to help you grow a little. Okay, LS. Thank you so much, sir. You didn't ask a question, but I really appreciate the contribution. Thank you, sir. Or ma'am, whatever you are. Ajay Sharma says, did I decode it? Promote veganism or veg at the same time destroying Indian food image? Why? Just peasants stay on their processed meat. I mean, what are you referring to, sir? Did you decode what exactly? You're talking about that cockroach milk thing? I'm not sure. Promote veganism or veg, same time destroying Indian. I'm a little confused. I'm not sure what the question is and what are you referring to? Who is trying? Are you talking about some specific country or some specific organization or some specific group of people? It helps if you give a little bit more context. Otherwise, I'm not able to understand. Brijesh, welcome and thank you very much. Captain, etc. By the way, you look like an Assamese priest with this hairstyle. Well, thank you. Please, just look and search the monk who is saving Majoli from Christian proselytizers Swarajya. Well, let's check it out, shall we? Let's check it out. Let's put that on the screen. Let's do a Google search. Okay. The monk who is saving Majuli from etc. The monk who is saving Majuli. Okay, that's not my hairstyle at all, but okay, I get what you mean. Not sure that's my hairstyle. You see this? See that? That's not my hairstyle. Anyhow, thank you. Astral. It's it's not often that I'm speechless, isn't it? Okay, let me try and decode this. Long-term effect of Indie plate with Eurasian plate to Japan, Bangladesh, Japan. Okay, long-term effect of Indian plate smashing into the Eurasian plate, higher Himalayas, higher and higher, higher and higher. Eventually, okay. Second, Bangladesh, Japan. I hear that the government of Japan is going to accept 100,000 Bangladeshis workers because they have a shortage of workers. Are you people crazy? They will never return. This is the beginning of the end of Japan if you have such policies. Bangladeshis, my God, don't you know what Bangladeshis do in India? Horrible. Hurts me to see this. I'm not Japanese. Oh God. Okay, pre-LTP. How did Italian bankers survive all collapses and go global while other bankers perished? Why Freemasons became so powerful across the world? Once again, this is what you call conspiracy theories. Show me one powerful Freemason. Okay, let's Google powerful Freemasons. See, I'm not saying that these are what you're saying is fake, but there's no way of proving it. Okay, let's see powerful Freemasons. Who are powerful Freemasons? Okay. Let's see. George Washington was apparently a Freemason. Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman was a Freemason. Winston Churchill, Simon Bolivar, Douglas MacArthur, Mozart, Buzz Aldrin, Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, Alexander Fleming, etc. Oscar Wilde. Well, Oscar Wilde was very badly treated by the British. Nat King Cole, okay, Freemason. Powerful Indian Freemasons. Let's see. Very strange names will come in, okay? I promise you that. Okay. Grand Lodge of Bombay. Come on, open up, bro. Why are these websites so slow? So let's read about famous Indian Freemasons. Firoz Shah Mehta, Tadabai Navroji, Swami Vivekananda, Pandit Ji, Motilal Ji Nehru Ji, President Fakhruddin, etc., whatever the name is, Sir Dorabji Jamshedji Tata, Gokuldas Narottam Murar, Ibrahim Karim Bhoi, BG Kher, Bhullabai Desai, Dr. Chakravarti Rajagopalachari, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, Sri Jamjetsi Ji Bhoi, Sir Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan, Maharaja Duleep Singh, Nawab Sir Amin Jung, whatever that is, David Abraham, never heard of it, him, Rasaikh Mafatlal, Justice Maidan, Dr. Firoz Setna, G.L. Raheja, Narayan Verma, Maharaja Jaya Chamaraj Vadiyar, wow, H.H. Martanda Verma, His Holiness, whatever that is, the Aga Khan, okay, the Nawab of Patowdi Mansur Ali Khan, Maharaja of Sindhia. Well, that's interesting. So some fascinating names. Swami Vivekananda, Motilal Ji Nehru Ji, and so many other interesting names. So you have famous Freemasons, who some of them seem to be pretty powerful. Why did they become powerful? Look, if you have a coordinated organization with lots of connections and powerful people who are willing to help each other, etc., and willing to open various doors, it makes you powerful. And if it's a global organization, it makes you even more powerful. So that's how it works. Italian bankers survive collapses. I'm not sure about the Italian bankers angle. How many big Italian banks do we have today? I think most of the big banks are based in London or the US. Uday Kumar says, will we ever see US fall and India rise as a hyperpower? If India accepts proposal of BRIC currency and its GDP reaches a significant size, 8 trillion by 2029, to avoid Chinese yuan getting unfair edge over Indian rupee in world, will we ever see the US fall? Look, every single empire that we know of in history has fallen. So obviously the US empire that currently is the hyperpower will fall one day. Now how and when it's an open question, and I'm not going to venture a guess as to how it will happen or when it will happen. Right now it is at the peak of its power. Eventually someday it will fall, no question about it. That is guaranteed. I give you this 100% probability it will happen. What time period? I don't know. I'll not venture a guess. Okay, so will India rise as a hyperpower? Well, that's a bigger question. There's a lower probability of that happening. Because for that, India will have to change fundamentally. India will have to become an imperial-minded country, which means it has to move away from being a democracy to being more of a monarchy imperial system like we had historically. But lots of people will moan if this happens and whine and complain if this happens. Oh, democracy is best, right? And of course, there's a danger when it comes to monarchies, because if you're a bad monarch, then democracy looks like the nicest thing in the world, and so on. If India accepts the proposal of BRICS currency, India is not accepting that proposal, because once you become part of a combined currency in which a more powerful nation controls things, then it's over for you. Not going to happen. The BRICS currency will become a proxy for the yuan, then, just like the euro is a proxy for the Deutschmark. So, not going to happen. Nanda Kishore says every country is in debt, but to who? Well, that's a good question. To who, right? Yeah, that's the big question in economics, but even I can't answer that question. ICBMs says at Sandhurst, view is India Navy vastly underrated. Well, we haven't seen the Indian Navy in action for a long time. I think the Indian Navy could really surprise a lot of people. So, yeah, I think the people who underrate the Indian Navy, it's vastly underrated. I mean, I would have loved to see the Indian Navy in action during the Operation Sindoor. I'm not sure what this at Sandhurst thing is, but I would have loved to see the Indian Navy in action, Operation Sindoor. Maybe in action against the terrorists in Karachi. I mean, there are known terrorists who are said to have residences in Karachi, and so on. So there could have been potentially some action there. So I think the Indian Navy itself is very powerful and very, very underrated. So this is financial consultancy. Follow up to the Nagaland question. Okay. Shouldn't we try to bring the Far East back to their indigenous culture, as it will be better for the long-term stability of India, especially with the US trying to carve out a new nation? Oh, yes, absolutely. We should try and bring our Far East back to their indigenous culture. It's obviously going to be better for India's long-term security, stability, cultural integrity, civilizational integrity, overall integration of all people. It'll be great. And yeah, I know what you're mentioning over here, the Project K, Cookie Land for Christ. The US is trying to create an artificial cookie country, Cookie Land for Christ, out of parts of Manipur, parts of maybe the whole of Mizoram, maybe some parts of Bangladesh, and some parts of Myanmar. This is a project that the Americans started during the Biden regime. I'm not sure if the Trump regime has entirely rolled it back or even started rolling it back. So I think it's still a problem. The cookie terrorism is still a problem in Manipur. It's going to be a long-standing problem. So India needs to bring the Far East back to their indigenous culture. It's going to be a long process, because the destruction of the culture and replacing with a foreign culture took decades, but it needs to happen. The first thing you need to do is to stop the funding for all these foreign organizations that have infiltrated the place. Foreign religious organizations that essentially rule the place. That needs to happen. So I completely agree with you, sir. Mystic SK says, what options other than military and diplomatic power can India develop to fight against the threats, as China and others won't hesitate to use bioweapons? It's not our dharma to do the same. Okay, let's not discuss bioweapons and whether it is our dharma to do the same or not. Listen, our dharma is to safeguard our population and ensure our victory. If you are the leader of India, the prime minister, you have a very simple, very clear dharma. Ensure the long-term security, prosperity, and success of the nation and the people. Long term, not today, not 5 minutes, not 2 weeks. Long term, I'm talking about 200 years minimum. And whatever you need to do to achieve that, it's fine to do it. If something is worth fighting for, it is worth fighting dirty for. That's what I would say. Some people will cry about this. They'll say you're very bad. Okay, I'm very bad. But that's how it is. Leading a nation, leading a civilization is not for children. It's not for amateurs. Only a few can do it. And even many people who have led this country have messed up so badly. So yeah, these are the options. So I think that answer that I just gave you, I think it answers your question. Everything is on the table as long as it serves the national interest. Don't impose restrictions on your actions, especially when it comes to to serving the national interest, the civilizational interest. That's what I would say. If others will do it, why can't we do it? We know others will do it, whatever it is, hypothetically. We should have the answers to all questions that they pose to us. Okay, Vansh Tyagi, thank you, sir. The US. Okay, I'm glad you opened this up. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you opened this up. The US had huge presence at the Noor Khan Air Base to target Afghanistan, well, to target whatever. And even the Pakistanis did not know what kind of weapons they brought. Do you think they're hiding nukes there? It's a perfect location to tackle in Iran and China. Map. Well, let's see the map. Okay. I'm glad he's prompting me. Map kholo. Let's do that. This is a very, very interesting topic now. It's all coming out now, what the Americans are up to. So, Noor Khan Air Base. Noor Khan Air Base. Chaklalala. Whatever that means. Chaklalala. Noor Khan Air Base. Where's the thing? Here it is. Shoaib Akhtar Cricket Ground. Okay, this is the satellite imagery of the Noor Khan Air Base. Now let's see if we can see any aircrafts over here. These are clearly aircrafts that are of American origin. Let's zoom in further. What do we see? Do they have Pakistani markings, or what markings do they have? I'm not sure it's very clear. I can't see from here what sort of markings do they have. What is this thing here? Could be Pakistani markings, but that doesn't prove or disprove anything. These seem to be of American origin, the manufacturer, I mean. Okay. You can even see human beings here, Pakistani human beings. And what do we have here? So I notice a lack of fighter aircraft, but these are all military aircraft of various kinds. What kind of hangars do we have where you can hide stuff? Well, you have hangars. Okay, we have some hangars. We can't see what's inside, obviously. That's why hangars exist. We have a hangar here. And do we have those rapid deployment things? Not quite. So this is not for fighter planes, it looks like. Because otherwise you would have those rapid deployment runways where you can, very quickly. Okay, we have some of that here. Okay. So maybe they have fighter jets in here, which can be rapidly deployed on demand at maybe 5 minutes notice. So this is Noor Khan Air Base. And from the news that is emerging, it looks like this air base was off limits to Pakistani military personnel, which means that it was apparently being operated by the Americans. And they had never told us about this. So we smashed that air base. And it looks like there was some damage of some kind. And maybe it's that triggered America's panic response that you got to stop this. So we don't know what kind of weapons are there and what they are targeting. I don't know who they are targeting. I mean, Afghanistan is under control. Iran, Pakistan is a good place to keep an eye on Iran from. And let's see how far this air base is from Iran. Let's quickly take a look. So how far is it from the Afghan border? How far is it from Iran? How far is it from any other country? Well, by the way, okay, let's see how far it is from Afghanistan. The shortest distance is about 190 something kilometers. How far is it from Srinagar? From Srinagar. It is 160 kilometers from Srinagar. How far is it from Delhi? It is 670 kilometers from Delhi. How far from Kabul? 375 kilometers. And when it comes to Iran, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. If you want to keep an eye on Iran, you would do Quetta. You would definitely not do an airbase in Punjab. Okay, so let's not even discuss the Iran matter from here over here. It's a good place from where you can keep an eye on India very much. The Kashmir situation, the Kashmir area, the Ladakh area, the various air bases we have, uh, the Pakistan facing air bases that we have in the western sector of India. If you have certain kinds of assets in the Noor Khan air base, you can keep an eye on what's happening in the New Delhi region, right? And yeah, you can also access Afghanistan pretty easily over here. And if you have good enough instruments, etc., you can even keep an eye on Tibet, occupied Xinjiang, etc. But the proximity and location of this airbase tells me it was meant for keeping an eye on India. Okay, that's how I see it. So it's not a perfect location to tackle in Iran or China. It's the right location to tackle India. So the Americans apparently were operating the Noor Khan Air Base. They have never told us about this. That makes me question everything the Americans are doing. Are they really India's friends and allies like they claim? Are the Pakistani nuclear weapons really Pakistani? I don't think so at all anymore. I don't think the Pakistanis have the brains to develop nuclear weapons. I don't think the Pakistanis have the brains. They may have the same DNA as us, but they don't have the brains. Something has gone wrong that has, meddled up their DNA. So I think the Pakistani nuclear weapons are actually US nuclear weapons deployed against us. So that tells you the relationship that we have with the US, or rather, that tells you how the Americans regard us as enemies. I am pretty much beginning to think that the Pakistani nuclear weapons are US nuclear weapons. Vidhi says, is there any other truth behind 9/11? US is too powerful? I don't know. Clearly, there could be something beyond what we know. Maybe it was not Osama, maybe it was somebody else. Maybe there is some cover up, but what is it? I have no idea. Dhyanchan says, is China really that strong, or is it just propaganda? Their weapons failed in Operation Sindoor, and with total censorship, nobody knows their real weaknesses. Could India actually win a war against them? Well, the truth lies somewhere in between, most likely. Their weapons, the ones they had supplied to Pakistan, they obviously failed. But then the Chinese, because of this, they got good real-time data, battle data. And I'm sure that the weapons they had supplied to Pakistan were not their best weapons. Or even if they were, now they'll be able to improve them. Right? And so that's one point. And Operation Sindoor was simply an air war, a 3-day war. It was brought to an end prematurely, or to pause prematurely. The fact that the Chinese have total censorship, that is a strength as well as a weakness. So maybe they have something to hide. That's what it could mean. And maybe it's also a strength because the outside world cannot really know what's happening within China. The last question is, do you think India could actually win a war against them? Well, it depends on what kind of war it is. If it's a border war, a Himalayan war, I think in which technology cannot play that big a role because of the incredibly difficult terrain. So tanks, you can have light tanks at best. I've seen those light tanks; they're pretty light actually, compared to the big heavy tanks, the battle tanks that you typically have. I have seen tanks on the roads, on the extremely treacherous roads of Ladakh. So maybe you could have light tanks, and maybe you could have those attack helicopters. Ours are better than the Chinese attack helicopters and so on. So I think if it's a limited border war, I think India would seriously pose a challenge to China. I think we have tremendous missiles. I think we may have the deadliest missiles in the world. And the Tibetan airfields and Chinese bases are sitting ducks. They can reinforce those things, but we can do hit after hit and just punch a hole into their defenses. The question is, how many missiles do we have? What's our stockpile like? We need to have a stockpile of tens of thousands of missiles of various kinds. Has the government ensured that we have such a stockpile? If we have a stockpile of tens of thousands of missiles, a war with India for China will be a huge mistake. But if we haven't done our homework, and if we don't have sufficient quantities of missiles, etc., then the longer a war goes on, the more dangerous it will become for India to win. To win, or to it will mean that we could possibly end up losing because of a shortfall of weapons. So the most important thing in today's day and age is you need to have stockpiles, significant stockpiles of kamikaze drones, of anti aircraft and anti drone systems, uh, defensive infrastructure, defensive weapons. You need to have stockpiles of long, medium, etc. range missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and so on and so forth. So all of that needs to be there. We have to be prepared for this to happen at a moment's notice, essentially, right? Don't start taking action after the threat becomes real and shows its face. We know the threat already exists. So I think India can win a war against China, and India can humble China tremendously. Maybe even make their hold on Tibet kind of shaky or weak, if we plan properly for all contingencies right now. MNSH says, if the BrahMos missile misfire was seen as a way to test Pakistan's air defense capabilities, could Operation Sindoor be India's attempt to test its nuclear capabilities as well? Maybe. Look, we don't have clear evidence this way or that way. Was it really a misfire, that BrahMos missile thing that happened like 2-3 years ago, or was it a way to test Pakistan's air defenses? Because the missile, the Pakistanis did not even attempt to intercept the missile. It just flew into Pakistan and hit some kind of target. So it was clearly a BrahMos missile that ended up in Pakistan, and the Pakistanis did not take any action to stop it. Probably because it was not going towards any sensitive location in Pakistan, one of their military bases or terrorist bases. It just went and hit some random location. So maybe it was a way of gauging what kind of response Pakistan will evince when this sort of thing happens. Is Sindoor India's attempt to test Pakistan's nuclear capabilities as well? Maybe in a way it was, because a lot has become clear after this. That Pakistan's nuclear blackmail is bluff. I mean, the bluff was called, and that blackmail has fallen flat. No matter how much we hit Pakistan, how hard we hit Pakistan, the best they did was to go crying to the Americans. They did not even make a single threat of using nuclear weapons. They went to the Americans and begged the Americans to intervene. And especially when we hit 11 air bases in 20 minutes, including Noor Khan, which is owned by the Americans, that's when the Americans made a stop. They asked us to stop. So Pakistan did not come even close to considering nuclear weapons. And that makes me wonder, are those nuclear weapons really Pakistani weapons? I am now of the opinion that these are American weapons, and the big red button lies in the hands of America, not Pakistan. So I think that has become rather clear after Operation Sindoor, which completely reshapes the India-US relationship. It's good to know who really stands with us and who really are our enemies. Nishanta Kalita says, did Bharat fail to modernize and innovate our military weapon systems after a certain time in ancient times, which led to losses during the medieval Islamic invasions? Kindly give specific examples. The reason we lost, the reason we first lost Gandhar, and then slowly over a few centuries we lost more territory. The reason is not because we once had superior military weapons and then we did not modernize. That is not the reason. The reason was that we did not have political unity in Bharat at that time. If these invasions had been attempted during the Kushan era, when the great Shri Kanishka was our emperor, those invasions would have been smashed like you would smash a cockroach or a mosquito. If the invasion had happened during the time of Shri Ashok, the same thing would have happened. He would have been super cruel to those invaders. If this had happened during the time of Kumaragupta or Chandragupta of the Gupta Empire, or Skandagupta or Samudragupta, they would have been smashed to bits, no matter what weapon systems they had. The reason we fell to the invasions eventually was because of lack of political unity. Because during the Kushan era, during the Maurya era, during the Gupta era, we had one emperor ruling over entire Bharatvarsh. But during the time when the Turkic and Arabic invasions happened, we had a lack of political unity. We did not have a single empire. We had lots of different kingdoms. And each kingdom acted independently of each other. They had their own petty jealousies and rivalries. And because they did not fight together as one entity, that's why the invaders were able to defeat one at a time. And eventually they were able to take over the subcontinent. Started with Gandhar. Gandhar was this beautiful place, seat of ancient culture and wisdom, seat of learning in universities. Gandhar. It was the original Kashmir. So those are the specific examples I can give you. It has nothing to do with military weapons, systems, etc. Anonymous says, how can a person become self-employed? Develop some skills that can help you provide some kind of genuine value to society. Find out whatever those skills are. I mean, it depends on what you're good at, what your aptitudes are. So acquire some skills that can help you provide genuine value to society, value that society really needs. So let's say there are some problems in society. Every society has problems. Every society has a certain population whose needs are not being served. Find a way to serve those needs and then charge for the value you're providing. That's how you become self-employed, sir. Sid says, your views on the recent fight between Musk and Trump. Musk made a serious allegation regarding the Epstein files. Friendship did not last even a year. Crazy. So Elon Musk made this very serious allegation that the reason why Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, is not releasing the Epstein files, it's been so many days, is because Donald Trump features on the Epstein files. So Musk made this allegation on Twitter, and now he has deleted the tweets. Okay? He knows everybody has taken screenshots. He knows that. But now he has deleted the tweet. So it's like, oh, I'm retracting my allegation now. So my question is Musk himself a liar? Can he be trusted? The second question is, if he knew all along that Trump features on the Epstein files, then why didn't Elon Musk put this out in the public domain immediately? I mean, don't you know that there's something called principles? If somebody is, let's say, if you feature on the Epstein files, it means you are you are essentially a pedophile or something like that, right? So if you know that somebody is that sort of person, you were okay to work with him and say that you love the guy as long as he gave you what you wanted. And then now that Trump has pushed Musk out of his cabinet and out of the White House, now Musk is happy to come up with the truth. What kind of person is this? A self-serving person, a person who lacks principles. So it looks like both these individuals lack principles. That's what it looks like to me. Trump is also that sort of person. I have seen this over a very long period of time. Trump will say whatever is required to get what he wants. It doesn't have to be the truth. He will say one thing one day, he will say the opposite the next day, with a completely straight face. That has been Trump's modus operandi. And he boasts about that in his book, The Art of the Deal. So he's not a trustworthy person. Maybe his principle is that I'm going to make money. That's the principle. But there are deeper principles beyond that, right? So it looks like, no, it doesn't look like. It's clear that both of these gentlemen, they lack integrity. They are not trustworthy people, and they're the last people who should be ruling the world. So Trump is going to be around for another 3.5 years. After that, he's gone. He's done and dusted. But Musk is going to be around for longer. So it's not a friendship. It was an alliance of convenience. Musk once tweeted that I love Donald Trump as much as the man can love another man. That's sort of tweet he made. And see now. So yeah, that's just how it is. You can't trust these people. Not trustworthy. Vamshi Kalam says 1857 wasn't Indian movement. Muslims tried Mughal restoration. There were other people who also fought in this. It was not just Muslims fighting to restore the Mughal rule. It started, by the way, not from a Mughal or Muslim thing. It started from Meerut with Mangal Pandey, and then it just snowballed and spread like a firestorm everywhere. So this is a complicated thing. There are layers to this, but you can't, pigeonhole this into a Mughal restoration in one sentence. It's way more complicated than that. Samir says, should India form a NATO alliance with Russia against the deep state? Yeah, I'm sure it sounds very good as an idea, but the world doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It won't happen. XPG007 says, respect from Punjab, respect back, sir. Thank you so much. What will be the geopolitical impact of accepting Su-57 offer with full tech and code transfer with the current India-US relationship? The Americans will throw a tantrum. Tantrum. They'll say, how dare you do such a thing? How dare you? Yeah, but we'll say, come on. You people are operating an airbase in Pakistan. You have given Pakistan your nuclear weapons. And you want us to do whatever you guys say, despite you acting as our enemies. Your actions are those of enemies. Your words are those of friends, but your actions matter more than words. And if we buy your trash can, the F-35, it'll cost 110 million per piece, and you're gonna force us to ask for an OTP every morning before we take it out to fly. And before we get the OTP, we have to give the entire flight plan. And even then, even if we agree to all this, if you want to bomb the Noor Khan airbase using your F-35, you will switch off the thing. You won't allow us to bomb it. So why should we buy your overpriced piece of garbage? So the thing is, it will cause a deterioration in India-US relationship. But we have no choice. We cannot buy the F-35. And the Americans their actions aren't those of friends. Their actions are those of an enemy nation. Shubham says, how to learn new things. What's your way? Please guide. I don't know. I just do it automatically, subconsciously. I just learn. I see if it's knowledge. Let's say I want to learn a piece of history. For example, I have never really read about the Maratha Empire. Okay, I know about it, obviously, as I've read about it as part of other historical contexts, but I've never really read about the Maratha Empire. What would I do? I would buy the 5 top rated books about Maratha history, and I'll read them all multiple times. At least I'll remember some of it. Then whatever I found interesting, I'll do deep dives on that based on the internet and based on every other thing. So I'll spend a month or so doing this. It takes time. I read super fast. I read at light speed. It'll still take me maybe a month. After a month, I'll feel that I'm reasonably comfortable, that I have some understanding of Maratha history. Then I'll continue the research phase, going deeper into rabbit holes over specific topics, and this period of time may take me a year or two. That's how I learn, right? That's how we learn new things. It takes time. You have to be committed, and you have to be really serious about this. If I want to learn, let's say I want to revisit tensor calculus. Okay, it's been a while since I used tensor, so maybe I'm rusty at that. I remember. So what would I do? I remember how I learned tensor calculus, which is math. How did I learn tensor calculus the first time? I think it was during the first year of college. I had a book, which is somewhere here, Shom series, tensor. No, it was the Shom series book on vector calculus, on vectors. But it had one chapter at the end on tensors. So I just solved every single problem on tensors. I would do that after coming back home from college in the evening. So every day after college for 2-3 hours, I would solve the problems, and I think it took me 3 or 4 days, if I recall correctly. After that, in that time, I was done with all the problems. Then I acquired the Shom series book on tensor calculus itself, and that would have taken me a couple of months. But I just ran through the whole book, solved every problem, and by that, if you do that, you're going to have a reasonably good understanding of tensors, and you can read general relativity books and research papers. So that's how we do it. It takes a tremendous amount of time and effort and mental, what would you say, willpower. But if you are curious, if you want to learn stuff, it's not something that's a problem. It's fun. So that's how I do it. Dr. Dester Surter says, I think you've made an error in the Okay, sir, I made an error. You are right, I'm wrong. You're great, sir. Okay, thank you. Grok says, do you think without foreign invasion, Bharat could have become a country and all princely states would have agreed on a single king forever? There is nothing forever. Nothing is forever. Do you think without foreign invasion, Bharat would have been a country? Without foreign invasion, we would not have had princely states. First of all, please understand, what are these princely states? The princely states were the puppet regimes that were put in power by the British after killing all the real kings in 1857. In 1857, our real kings stood up and fought the British. And the British, for whatever reason, they were able to succeed and they killed all the royal families. They killed them physically, off with their heads, or hang them. One example is Rani Lakshmibai, and so on. They killed everybody. And then what did they do? Of whichever king or queen they had killed, they would find some distantly related family member, okay, and they would take some young kid from that family and put that kid as the next king, and then they would educate that kid and completely anglicize that kid, and these puppet rulers became the rulers of the and then all these little kingdoms were called princely states. And all these little kings and queens, they were puppets of the British. I think you will know their names today. And those were the princely states. Before 1857, you had real kingdoms. And the British destroyed that. So today, if somebody claims to be from some royal family of some princely states, they are descendants of puppets who collaborated with the British. They are not the true descendants of the true kings of India. Those are somewhere else. I'm sure they exist. But they are no longer recognized and they are no longer known. And the ones who go around saying, oh, we are descendants of the rulers of princely states, those are the descendants of puppets and collaborators. Without foreign invasion, yeah, so that's what I'll say about this. Yeah. Dheeraj Kamath says modern mainstream dharmic schools almost all promote passiveness, vegetarianism, and suicidal tolerance, anti-Gita traits which are causing our population to disappear. Is this design funded by the West? Much of it is funded by the West, that's what I will say, without going into details and naming specifics. Many of these so-called dharmic movements have been infiltrated long ago. Many of these so-called dharmic movements were taken over in the last century, in the 20th century. I am not mentioning anybody, so don't throw a tantrum, those who are listening. I am not specifically naming anyone. I'm not saying all of them are infiltrated. I am not saying every dharmic movement is infiltrated, but some are, without naming anyone. So yeah, many of them promote these things. Passiveness, vegetarianism, it's a personal choice, but it's for the person to decide. Tolerance, and so on. Anti-Gita traits. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Traits that are anti-Gita, anti-Bhagavad Gita, right? I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is the core of what you got to learn as a Hindu. Of course, we have so many other texts which go all the way back to the Rig Veda. But if you want to learn how to live a great life and to be a great person, then there's no better text than what Shri Krishna said on the battlefield to Arjun when Arjuna was wavering, right? So anybody who teaches you something that goes against the Bhagavad Gita, you've got to put a huge question mark on that person's face. That who does this person really serve? And what is this person's real agenda? That's all I will say about this. So Dheeraj Kamath, thank you so much for bringing this to everybody's notice. Unless somebody asks me a question, I don't take these things. So you have made me take this up. So I will say this. I am not naming anybody. I am not claiming that every dharmic school has been taken over by the West. Not all, but some are. So how do you know that that so-and-so dharmic school is compromised? If they are preaching something that goes against the original teachings of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. It is possible that some of these dharmic schools may put out their own versions of the Bhagavad Gita, potentially, possibly. I'm not naming anybody, but once again, it's also possible that these new versions of the Bhagavad Gita may have some certain changes from what Sri Krishna said. And it's very difficult for the ordinary person to find out what these changes are and to even notice that they have edited and modified this thing. Right? And some of them insult other Hindu gods and so on. So I would say it's a very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing, and it's very important for people to notice this and realize that not all is well. Shiva Rajput says, can the new Cold War between the US and China turn into a real war? And will Pakistan be the battleground or the pawn? Role of Pakistan, China versus US. Pakistan is there for India. Pakistan is a pawn. It's always been a pawn, and the objective has always been to target India. It's nothing to do with China. So China wants to use Pakistan as a pawn to target India. The US has always used Pakistan as a pawn to target India. Always, of course, for a decade or so, there was the focus on Afghanistan. But after that, the focus came back to India. So Pakistan has always been a pawn. It's not a battleground. It's an expendable pawn. It's a disposable pawn. Can the new Cold War turn into a real war? I think both nations will try their best not to have a real war, because it will be tremendously damaging to both countries and their infrastructure and their economies. The objective will be to win without actually fighting a kinetic war. So hopefully it doesn't turn into a real war, because then other nations will get dragged into it, which is bad for everybody. Reghuram Iyer says, prospects of self-reliance defense-wise. I think we are on a very good footing when it comes to self-reliance defense-wise. Look, we are completely self-reliant when it comes to missiles of every kind, whether it's ballistic missiles. We have short, medium, long, intercontinental range ballistic missiles. Okay, we have ballistic missiles and possibly other missiles with MIRV capability. We have cruise missiles of various ranges, including supersonic cruise missiles like the BrahMos. We will eventually soon have hypersonic cruise missiles. We have subsonic cruise missiles also, which have been pretty well tested, which could be inducted. We have various kinds of drones, very high quality drones. So in these matters, we are extremely very self-sufficient in terms of these things. When it comes to naval stuff, once again, we have very good missiles, etc. We definitely can use more submarines. One of the Achilles heels that we have is submarines, whether it's nuclear, whether it's conventional. So we need to have, I would, in my opinion, at least 50 submarines. Come on. If you have 50 submarines, then it means that at any given point in time, you may have 17 or so deployed operationally. How do I know that? Well, secrets. Then Air Force wise, the one Achilles heel there is the jet engine technology. So that's something we need to figure out. So overall, we are on a very good track. There are certain things that we need to figure out. I think in 5-10 years, we could be one of the biggest defense exporters. And probably by that time, if we can figure out those couple of things, I'm sure there's some other things as well. But those couple of things, if we can figure out the jet engine and the submarine thing, then we could be a tremendously powerful nation. Jayesh Singh says, is India's cold start doctrine still valid? It could still be valid for sure, but maybe it's evolved and we are not aware of it. See, India doesn't publicize and publish its doctrine like some other nations do, like the US. Okay, so doctrines evolve. After Operation Sindoor, I promise you there's been a lot of evolution in the doctrine. So maybe there's a new version of cold start. Maybe cold start is in trash bin and we have a different kind of doctrine, possibly. Yeah, maybe a pulse pause war doctrine, which is kind of cold start, but maybe a different kind of cold start. So it's hard to say. What I can tell you is that it's a given. It's almost a guarantee that after Operation Sindoor and all the data, all the observations, all the feedback that came to us from our operations, from all the observational evidence we have, a lot will have changed in India's doctrine. We have way more intelligence now, way more intel we have now about the way Pakistan's military operates, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what the other nations' involvement is, and so on. And that will have helped us reshape our doctrine and make it more robust, So I'm sure the doctrine has changed. Dev Chandan Malik says, why does Indian media focus on trials over truth? Trials over truth. Despite 1.48 lakh outlets, none frame India's global view. Is it slow courts or societal stigma? Why is business failure seen as crime? You asked like multiple questions, sir. Why does Indian media focus on trials over truth? I'm not sure what that means. Trials over truth. Okay, I'm not able to understand that, but yeah, despite 1.48 lakh outlets, none frame India's global view. That's a problem. That's a problem. I have been saying this for the past 4+ years, that why don't we have our own version of the BBC or the CNN or the Chinese CCTN or whatever it is they call it, or Al Jazeera. All these little nations have these mega outlets. The Germans have Deutsche Welle, DW, uh, and so on and so forth. The Chinese have the thing, the Japanese have the thing. We have nothing. We have some of these channels that have this 8 p.m., 9 p.m. debates, shouting matches with like 6 to 8 to 12 people on the screen, all shouting at the same time. Nothing ever emerges as an outcome of these debates. I personally have been guilty of going on these debates. I am still invited to these debates. But what's the outcome? And how does it set our agenda globally? It doesn't. It essentially turns us into a laughing stock. The West kind of makes fun of India, like you have 28 different people on the screen and all these things going on and so on and so forth. So that's a problem. We need to have a very serious media outlet. And the government has Doordarshan. Why can't we transform Doordarshan into a global beast? I know Doordarshan is still seen as this 1980s quality TV channel with completely unprofessional staff and all that, amateurs. But you could completely revamp them, revamp the whole thing. The government has the money. The government has deeper pockets than anybody else in the country. They can transform Doordarshan into a global behemoth as India's mouthpiece, as India's, the news outlet that puts India's perspective up front in front of the world. It needs to happen, but it doesn't look like there is any desire for this to happen from the perspective of the government. So it is sad to see. Slow quotes. I don't have any idea about that. I think you're mixing questions over here. Why is business failure seen as crime over here? Business is seen as a crime in India. If somebody makes money, it's seen as a crime in India, right? If somebody earns a little bit of money, people start complaining. Haven't you seen that? You see that all the time. I turned on super chats recently because I want to test it out and I want to see whether the quality of the questions improves. And I get 100+ complaints that you are now making money. Arey Baba, I did 248 episodes without super chats. You don't see that. So Indians are like this, nitpickers and complainers. And they don't like the prospect of anybody making a little bit of money from something. Right? That's what India is like. That's what the Indian population is like. It's very sad to see this. So doing business is seen as a crime. Making money is seen as a crime. And business failure is also seen as a crime in India. This whole perspective, this whole mindset has to be changed. And it starts with changing the education system. Everything goes back. If you want to change the quality of a society, if you want to change the way society thinks, if you want to change a society's perspective and viewpoint and worldview, it has to start with the education system. I've been saying that, harping about this for years. So let me say it again. The education system needs to be reformed. Let me say that with a smile for a change. Okay, Abhishek Khare says, Manusmriti, how to counter if somebody brings it? I have no idea what you're asking. I like the Manusmriti. Manusmriti is one of our great texts and one of our great historical texts. And we have tens of thousands of historical texts. And some people have demonized the Manusmriti. I can show you religious texts that are 1,000,000 times more toxic than than any allegation you can make about the Manusmriti. So get the hell out of the way. Those who are harping on that Manusmriti is this or that. Huh? So yeah. But anyway, this is not my cup of tea. This religious matter. Okay, I don't address these things. Okay, Vivi says, I don't know why India is painted as some garbage land during during independence. We were the second most powerful nation in Asia at the time. We made the first Asian jet. It's all the power of propaganda, my dear friend. It's all the power of propaganda. The truth doesn't matter in the world. The age of the West is the age of it's the post-truth age. The West invented something called propaganda. Of course, they weren't the first to invent it. We may have invented it. I mean, if you see Emperor Ashoka's inscriptions everywhere, you could say that was propaganda, you know, to some extent. But anyway, the age of the West is the post-truth age. Truth doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what somebody repeats over and over and over again. That's propaganda. So yeah, what you're saying is because of propaganda. That's why certain narratives exist about India. Animesh Paul says, how can we build stronger national unity when many are unaware of the geopolitical threats we face? What role can citizens play just beyond the government and armed forces in resisting propaganda and safeguarding our nation? Look, beyond the government to government interactions, beyond the interactions between armed forces and armed forces, which is warfare, beyond that, there is another domain of warfare, which is the warfare on social media. And it is social media narratives that essentially shape the way the world thinks these days, and it shapes the way nations think. Now, social media platforms are owned by the West, which makes it very easy for the West to manipulate the worldview of Indians and the way Indians think, and even the mood of the nation. I promise you, they have got big dashboards on screens in the West, which show color-coded mood charts, mood maps of what the mood is like in various parts of India about a certain topic. And then they can trend certain things on Twitter and other social media outlets, and then change the mood by doing that. We saw a glimpse of that in Prism, which was leaked by Edward Snowden more than almost 15 years ago. If they could do it at that time, imagine what they can do today. And when it came to Prism, I think India was one of the top nations under US surveillance. Okay. So I think that if you want to build stronger national unity, you obviously aren't part of the government. Majority of Indians aren't part of the government or the armed forces, but you can fight the good fight on social media. Every day, just spend 5 minutes, putting out the truth about whatever matters to you on social media. Everybody has social media accounts: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever else I may have missed. So spend 5 minutes a day putting out something positive about India, or countering some false narrative about India. Just 5 minutes a day. Doesn't take much of your time. So everybody, if 1.4 billion Indians do that, imagine the effect of that. So that's how you can build national unity, etc. Anonymous says, well, thank you very much, sir. I'm doing well. Thank you. But what's the follow-up? Okay, I'll see. I'm sure there's a follow-up somewhere. Thank you. Okay, Katie says, my theory, black hole equilibrium via Higgs field integrity prevents singularity. General relativity holds at core. Is it viable from an astrophysics view? I can't say just like that. If you can show me the equations that you've worked out, then I can look into it. Because see, when it comes to physics theories, we have to look at the equations. Without looking at the equations, you can't really tell whether it holds. Because, words are vague and nebulous. Mathematical equations are precise. So when I see your equations that you must have developed to, as the backbone of the theory, then I'll be able to figure it out. So, my email ID is down there in the description. Whatever calculations and derivations you've done, please email that to me. I'll check it out and I'll get back to you in case it is worthwhile. Ajay Sharma says, why is veganism or vegetarianism aggressively promoted while Indian food is called unhygienic, unhealthy on social media, especially post-Ukraine war? Any hidden agenda? Post-Ukraine war, in February 2022, Vladimir Putin launched the special military operation to denazify and whatever else Ukraine and demilitarize Ukraine. Because Ukraine was crossing, NATO was crossing Russia's red lines. And India refused to participate in the Western sanctions and other measures against Russia. Once India refused to participate, we saw the launch of a coordinated slander campaign against India on social media and in the larger scale legacy media. That is BBC, CNN, Guardian, Le Figaro, and so on and so forth, so on and so forth. All the Western media outlets started this coordinated campaign against India. And Western media outlets like BBC, etc., they will do it at a certain level. Think tanks will do it at a different level. And on social media, you can get down and dirty and create all kinds of disgusting memes about India, right? So all of this is a coordinated set of actions. There's one single entity behind all of this. That's the thing. There's no hidden agenda. It's an open agenda. It's about demonizing India. So that in the future, if India is punished in some way, if something bad happens to India, then nobody feels bad, right? That's the deal. So for example, Operation Sindoor happens, and for some reason Pakistan wins, then the West will say, people in the West will not feel so bad about this. That sort of thing. That tells you that India needs to be very careful, very serious about its defense. Nobody will feel bad if something bad happens to India, and nobody will come to India's rescue. U-rated Indian Navy view is at UK Sandhurst Military Academy. U-rated Indian. Could you please explain in a little more detail? I'm not able to decipher these things. U-rated Indian Navy view. Okay, so the UK Sandhurst Military Academy says India's Navy is not great. Who the hell cares what the UK thinks? The UK is a third-rate military power. The UK is a third-rate world power. The UK doesn't matter. The only importance the UK has is first as the US's lapdog, and secondly as the world's global epicenter of money laundering. Beyond that, there's no other utility. The UK is a poor nation attached to London, which is a money laundering hub, the global money laundering hub. That's all. So I don't care what the UK Sandhurst Military Academy thinks. I don't care. Doesn't matter. They don't even have their own nuclear deterrent. The big red button sits in Washington. The prime minister is anonymous. Nobody knows who the prime minister is. Is it Rishi Sunak? Is it Theresa May? Is it somebody else? Oh, these days it is Starmer, is it? Well, wait a couple of weeks. Somebody else will come in. Doesn't matter. The UK is irrelevant. Anonymous says, currently every computer in the world is adhered to hierarchical organizational structure H. Every company in the world adheres to hierarchical organizational structure HOS, in which CEO is the highest authority and CTO, CFO, etc. Yeah, there's a hierarchy. Yes, there is. I agree. In any organization, if you want to have an organization that functions properly, you need to have a hierarchy. You can't have a plain flat organization. It doesn't work. I mean, can you have the sweeper do the cleaner or the janitor do the work of a computer programmer? Can you have a computer programmer do the job of a security guard? Can you have a security guard do the job of the chief financial officer? Can you have the chief financial officer do the job of the chief executive officer, and so on and so forth? It doesn't work, right? Everybody has specialization. That's why. So any functional society, any functional organization has a properly laid out division of labor structure. Turjoy Dey says, I'm a Bangladeshi Hindu. 80% of Bangladesh is less than 2 meters above sea level. 70% floods yearly. As the sea levels rise, how should India respond to this crisis? As the sea levels rise, we should offer asylum to Bangladeshi Hindus. I am totally in favor of that. Give asylum in India to all Bangladeshi Hindus. That's what we should do. Beyond that, I have nothing to say. Anonymous says, does Bharat have or had any own organizational structure which is better than the HOS did? Ancient Bharat had companies. Ancient Bharat did not have these great, huge corporations as far as we know. Ancient Bharat had, it's a very interesting question you're asking. Did ancient Bharat have companies? You had guilds. Guilds are not organizations, but communities, close-knit communities of people who are engaged in the same profession. It's kind of tied to the Jati Varna system that we used to have, and which has been destroyed. Jati was typically occupation-based. wasn't it? No, Jati was lineage based and Varna was occupation based. And it was pretty complicated. It was too complicated for the British to wrap their heads around. So we did not have any mega corporations as such, but we were a completely fully industrialized society. And I think in Bharat, in the government, you would have had an organizational structure, a proper hierarchical organization structure. As far as we know, well, I've never seen any reference to any Indian corporation back in the day, before the Turkic occupation invasions began. So yeah, not sure about this, but that's a fascinating question you asked, and I wonder why Indian historians have not tried to address this topic. Right. So if yes, how did they used to operate and what was their organizational structure? As always, colossally proud as a distant student of yours. Thank you. And thank you to you as well. So like I said, I am not sure. I've never come across any historical document or book or whatever that speaks about Indian corporations back in the old days, back in the days when India was genuinely sovereign and culturally and civilizationally independent. We know that we had all the possible industries in the world: metallurgical industries, shipbuilding industries, textile industries, arms manufacturing, and whatnot. Everything you could imagine, we had that in the country. And this was all decentralized. It was not like we have 5 metropolitan cities, and unless you move to one of these big cities, you won't have a job. No, people had jobs wherever they were in the country. It was the world's probably best economic model. But as a consequence, as far as I can see, it looks like we did not have any mega corporations. So I haven't seen evidence of that, and I haven't really even thought about this thus far until you asked me this question. So yeah, now that you asked me the question, I'm trying to recall from all my years of reading about Indian history. I can't remember a single reference in any history book about an Indian corporation, a mega corporation comparable to what you may have today. If you want to know about the organization structure in the Indian governance system during the Mauryan era, read the Arthashastra. It's very clearly laid out over there. But corporate structure, no idea whatsoever. So I am going to have to say, I'm sorry, I don't know. As far as I know, nobody has written about this. If it did exist, no historian has bothered to research that, which is surprising because nobody has even mentioned that we tried to research this and we could not find anything, which is strange. Yeah. Sumant Damarla says, how can somebody intercept ICBM with nuclear warhead? If they intercept in space, a nuclear explosion in space would be catastrophic for Earth, right? Not right. Let me explain why. So, Starfish Prime. Let us Google Starfish Prime. Shall we? Starfish Prime. Let's look at the images first. This is what a nuclear explosion in space looks like. All right. Now, let's look at the AI summary, which is not necessarily right, but it will be the same quality as Wikipedia. 1.4 megaton nuclear blast conducted by the US in 62, detonated at a high altitude, 400 kilometers over the Pacific Ocean. Okay. So that's a big warhead, 1.4 megaton. It created a significant EMP that disrupted power grids and communication systems in Hawaii. It caused damage to satellites in orbit, and so on, so forth, etc. So as you can see, a nuclear explosion in space will not be catastrophic for the Earth. Now that's number one. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you take out an ICBM, if you smash it to bits and it has nuclear warheads, those nuclear warheads won't explode. They are designed to explode when they reach the target. They won't just randomly explode. And even if they explode, let's say, then you can see what happens. Nothing happens. It's fine. It may damage some satellites in space. Perhaps. But most likely, I would say not most likely, but guaranteed, they are designed to not explode in space. Because if let's say the US launches an ICBM at Russia, for example, okay? So the ICBM will exit the atmosphere and then try to re-enter the atmosphere. And let's say we have an exo-atmospheric interception. So the Russians take out the ICBM before it can re-enter the atmosphere. Maybe let's say at 150 kilometers or 200 kilometers height. altitude. And let's say the satellite, the ICBM has, let's say, 10 warheads and they all explode. I think the Americans have way more satellites in space than the Russians, right? Will it not cause more damage to the Americans? It will. So the Americans will ensure that whatever happens, if the ICBM is intercepted, it will not result in the detonation of the nuclear warheads. You can build in fail-safe measures to ensure it doesn't happen. It's the same thing like, you know what, if India hits Pakistani nuclear warhead storage sites, will it not cause nuclear explosions? Not necessarily. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Ankita has gifted 5 Abhijit Chawda memberships. Thank you so much, ma'am. You're very kind. Thank you so much. Confused fan says, why is India so passive? Why can't India play games with China with respect to Taiwan or Tibet? Because in the real world, you can play games to the extent to which you're powerful. It's not a TV debate where everybody can come and shout at the same vocal volume. It's not a TV debate. It's the real world. In the real world, your ability to play games is constrained by 2 things. One, your power. Secondly, the power of your adversary. If your adversary is 4 times more powerful than you, then you have very little space to play games. Because when they start playing games, it's going to affect you 4 times as much. So let's not get all... Okay? The solution to this problem is for India to become more powerful. For that, India has to work really, really hard for the next 15-20 years. No other solution. So this is what happens, This is what happens because of a rotten education system. People can see that India is not powerful and India is being passive against China, but people are not able to understand why it is like this. Because the education system, my dear friends, has not given you the tools to understand how things work in the world. So you are like, oh, India is very passive, blah, blah, blah. But you don't understand why it is so. What are the things that are constraining India that you don't understand? Because your teachers, your textbooks never taught you anything. You should be deeply, deeply disappointed with your teachers and with your textbooks in your schools and colleges and universities. They did not teach you anything. You are completely clueless today. You don't understand why India is not able to do so-and-so thing or so-and-so thing against China, and why China can do this but India can't do it. Because they did not teach you a thing about these things. It's so sad. Ramnath says, how did Russia bypass Western sanctions? What WTO India impact? How did Russia bypass Western sanctions? They didn't bypass any sanctions. They just withstood the sanctions. Why? Because they are an autarky. They are an enormous landmass, and the landmass is such that it has all the resources you need to have as a civilization. Whether it's iron, whether it is copper, whether it is coal, whether it is oil, whether it is gas, whether it is agricultural products, whether it is chemicals, whether it is fertilizer, whatever you want, everything is available in Russia. The Russians have to import nothing. So even if you put all kinds of sanctions on Russia, it doesn't affect Russia. That's the reason why Russia was able to withstand the sanctions. WTO India impact, I have no idea what you're asking, so sorry. Charmi Danesha says, Israel controls the US deep states apparently. This means they drive US policy and actions. It's very confusing. US has sided Pakistan, but Israel, India. That's the question I have raised multiple times and nobody has an answer to this. And Charvi Danesha is asking a very good question. See, it's like this. We know, I think nobody can deny this, that the US has positioned Israel as its number 1 ally for some reason. The US will never, ever, ever, ever do anything that will in any way, big or small, hurt Israel's national interest. The US will always offer unconditional support to Israel. Right? So it means that these two are the closest allies you can imagine anywhere in the world. The US values Israel more than it values its own mother country, the UK. Right. So that's why many people say that the Israelis control the US deep state. Okay, which means that they drive US policies and actions. Fine, fair enough. Lots of people say that. Now, but Pakistan is a US vassal state. And Israel is India's friend. So what is Israel's relationship with Pakistan? That's the big question that people don't answer in India. Because in India, people don't think, right? People don't think in India. In India, we have full support Israel. Full support Israel. People don't look even one layer deeper. What's the relationship between Israel and Pakistan? In the 1980s, the Israelis had proposed a plan to India that let's conduct a joint Air Force operation and we will destroy Pakistan's nuclear reactor, which was being built at the Kahuta or wherever. Okay? So the plan was that Israeli Air Force fighter planes will take off with Indian fighter planes from air bases in Western India and will go and wipe out the Pakistani nuclear reactor and return to airbase. So that was the plan, and it almost went ahead, but at the 11th hour, Israel pulled out of it. And that's why the Pakistani nuclear program went ahead. And maybe the Pakistani nuclear program was just a cover for Pakistan acquiring US nuclear warheads, or whatever it is. So Israel walked out of this thing at the last moment. Why did Israel choose not to destroy Pakistan's nuclear reactor? And what's the nature of the Israel-Pakistan relationship like today? These are nebulous matters. There are big question marks over these things. The Israelis and Pakistanis don't have official diplomatic relations. Pakistan doesn't recognize the state of Israel, and so on. Pakistan says Israel is evil, blah, blah, blah. But what is the actual deal is the question, right? And there is a lot of vagueness, big question mark over this. Because on the one hand, Israel is the US's biggest ally. On the other hand, India and Israel have excellent relations. Pakistan is India's second biggest enemy. Pakistan is a US vassal. Israel and US best terms. So what is the Israeli relationship with Pakistan? And there are other questions when it comes to Israel also, okay, which I'll not go into over here. So it's an excellent question that Charbi has raised over here. And it's a question I think Israel should answer. I can't. But it's a question that needs to be asked. So glad to have this question today. Ronak Jain says, please come back to normal or maintain question quality. We'll see about that, sir. Anshul Singh says, America series ka kya hua next episode? Soon enough. I think I'm taking on too many things at the same time. I am doing these Q&As every week. Last week I did 5 of them. Okay, this is the 5th one for this week, right? Next week we will have 4. I'm also doing, I've also restarted the Indian Interest, 1 episode per week. Next week we will have 2 episodes of geostrategy. I also have some podcasts that I need to release. And I also have the Understanding America series that needs to continue. So I think I'm juggling a lot of things right now, but it will come soon, the next episode. I already have some in the can. So they'll come out soon. And I thank you for asking this question. I'm glad that some people are watching Understanding America. And the next episode will come out reasonably soon. Ritvik Yaduvanshi says, saw your tweet about Japan. Why doesn't Japan bring in more Indians who share similar values instead of groups that may disrupt their culture? Are they solving one problem only to create another? You see, my dear friends, in case you have been watching this channel for some time, you will know that Japan has lost control of its destiny. Japan became a slave of another country in 1945. 1945 was the year the American military occupation of Japan started. In 1945, the Americans wrote the Japanese constitution. It was not written by Japanese. It was written by the Americans. And from 1945 until 2025, how many years? 80, 90, whatever it is. How many years is it? Yeah, 80 years. In 80 years, not a word of that constitution has changed. The Americans have not allowed Japan to change a word of that constitution. The Americans have more than 130 permanent military bases on Japanese soil. The Americans control the Japanese economy. The Bank of Japan can't do a thing without the approval of the US generals who run the country. The Japanese foreign policy is controlled by the US. The Japanese economic policy is controlled by the US. And now the Americans have decided that we're going to have invaders into Japan. The same thing that's happening to Europe is now going to happen to Japan. So you're going to have Rohingyas, you're going to have Bangladeshis, you're going to have God knows what else coming into Japan. So it's not Japan's fault. It's the Americans who are doing this. And it's sad. It's terribly sad. Vamshi Kalam says, if princely states are puppets, then Rajputs are too from Mughal collaboration. So this is one allegation that they keep raising about the Rajputs. The Rajputs contributed more blood to the country. They shed more blood to the country than you can imagine. They were at the front line of India's defenses for close to 500 years. Ever since the Gandhara invasion started, the Rajputs were doing the fighting, the bleeding, and the dying. Eventually, the Rajputs were broken because of a lack of political unity. Every Rajput kingdom fought bravely, but fought without unifying with the others. So this went on for centuries. Even 500 years after Gandhar fell, the Rajputs were still fighting, but eventually they were broken, and some were co-opted by the Mughals. So that's why this slander has started. The Rajputs were Mughal collaborators. Well, it is just sad to see this. Our own Indian people saying such things. Just sad, And this is a great example of how divided India is. Indians like to, launch taunts and jibes at each other, and they feel good about this. Sad to see this. Aishwarya Sinha says, you've always criticized the magnificent Shri Nehruji for his policies, but you have to agree on his fact that his non-aligned position has made India a true sovereign nation. Really? You say so? The non-aligned movement was a stupidity. India should have been multi-aligned, madam. Multi-alignment is where the real juice is, where the real, that's the right policy. Why be non-aligned? Non-aligned was a term that was an excuse for being mediocre. India should have played at the biggest and highest level of geopolitics. India should have been friendly with all the big powers without taking sides. And if you do that properly, if you are adroit in doing this, then you can really reap the maximum benefits. But if you just say that I'm non-aligned, but you become a puppet of the USSR, what kind of a joke is that? Do you think India was really sovereign? Do you think India was really sovereign during the 20th century Cold War? You think so, ma'am? So India, what India should have done was India should have been multi-aligned. We should have invited American investment. We should have invited Russian investment. We should have told America that we are a better alternative to China. You don't need to get into the Chinese thing. We should have told America, you don't need Pakistan. We are there. We're going to do whatever you want. Right? We would have told the Russians, look, we are not becoming American puppets. We're not becoming their vassals or allies. We are doing business with them. You are welcome to invest in India. So play that sort of game. It's difficult. It's not impossible. It's happened many times in the past. That's what India should have done. That way, India would have been sovereign, as well as India would have become way richer than China and way earlier than China. And then India could have played its entirely own game. So that is my position on this, ma'am. Ritvik Hiduvanshi says, did you watch the Vijay Mallya podcast? Your views? I don't watch podcasts. I simply don't have the time to watch podcasts. And I haven't watched the Vijay Mallya podcast, so I don't have any views on that. Prashant says, if you get a chance to interview the External Affairs Minister, what are my top questions? I don't know if the opportunity arises. I'm sure I will. When I do a podcast, it's not an interview, it's a conversation. I usually speak only about 5% of the time. I speak very less generally. I want the other person to talk. That's how I've always done it. I'm not the person who will go intervene and interfere and keep interrupting the person I'm talking to. But I never go into a podcast session with a set of questions in my mind. I never have a sheet of paper. Only once it happened because the other gentleman insisted. I don't like it. I never have a piece of paper with predetermined questions. I always go into a podcast with a completely empty mind, and I start the conversation, and we'll see how it goes. It only works if you have some kind of understanding and knowledge of what the other person's domain and field is. So if I get to speak with our external affairs minister in a podcast, I will go in with an empty mind, but I'm sure it'll be a fantastic podcast. So I don't know what I would talk about. Right off, if you ask me right now, I have no idea. Maybe things will have changed. Things will be different whenever this happens, if it happens. Yeah. Charmi Danesha says, why West does not like India? We are only doing good. Live peacefully and most prosperously wherever we are. You see, the West is not like us. They don't like people living peacefully. If you look at their history, is it a history of allowing people to live in peace? It is a history of going where people are minding their business and living their lives and destroying those cultures, genociding people, stealing their land, and then claiming to be the upholders of human rights. The West is the biggest problem that the human civilization has encountered in the past 500 years. So we, India, we were enslaved by the West for 250 years. For a quarter millennium, they plundered everything of value out of India. They tampered with our society. They tried to Christianize vast regions of India. They imposed their primitive, barbaric systems on India, institutions on India. Their inferior governance system has been imposed on India. They handed power to a set of crooks, etc. And the objective was that by the time a few decades pass, India will be completely destroyed, its culture will be uprooted, civilization will be gone. But lo and behold, we are still here. And when the British left, our life expectancy was 31. The average person was expected to live 31 years in India. Our GDP per capita was abysmal, and so on. But we rose again. We are growing again. And from the Western perspective, their attitude is, how dare you still exist? After we ruled you and plundered you for 250 years, how dare you still survive? And how dare you still be polytheistic? And they are determined to smash us into oblivion. That's why they don't like India. They hate polytheists. And they hate anybody who doesn't have a white skin. And they hate anyone who can set a better example than their system. So that's why they hate us. And they will not allow us to live peacefully and mind our own business. So there's going to be some kind of reckoning someday. Ritvik Yaduvanshi says, ISKCON is blamed per live chat response. I have no idea about that. I have not mentioned anybody anywhere. So Adit Kumar says, is the news of Taiwan asking for Indian radars true? If it is true, why is America allowing this? I haven't heard of this news. Okay, let's Google it. Let's Google it and see if it is true, if it has appeared in the news. So Taiwan Indian radars. Yeah. Taiwan is interested in that's one second. I have to see the news. Where's the news? Resonant news. I don't think that's a reliable source of information. Business Today. China. Okay, so I am looking for a properly established news outlet. China gave Pakistan radar satellite. We know that. Okay. So I think, look, I don't know what this outlet is, but I don't think it's a major outlet. It's not. I don't think it's an outlet that can be regarded as a reputable outlet. So I don't know. In all these YouTube channels, I don't believe them. I mean, there's no reason to put too much credence into what various YouTube channels say. Despite me also being a YouTube channel, I'm saying this, okay? Being very clear about this. So I don't know if this is true. So if it is not known to be true, then we cannot speculate as to why the US would allow it. So I don't know. Some people, just for views and clicks and whatnot, will put out all kinds of random news, made up news. But yeah, so you have to take all these claims with a grain of salt. Parveena Singh says PM Modi is invited to the G7 just a week before the summit. Something sinister is being planned for credit GV Trump to try something foolish for headlines. Um, I don't think anything sinister is being planned. I think the Canadian new Prime Minister, maybe he wants to build some bridges with India. His predecessor, Mr. Justin Trudeau, had done more damage than you can imagine to India-Canada relations. So maybe Mr. Carney wants to repair the ties. And it doesn't make, I mean, the G7 loses relevance if a major power, a major economy like India is not invited. So I don't think anything sinister is being planned. Will Trump try something foolish for headlines? Well, only Trump will know about that. Trump is capable of anything. Trump is a juvenile, irresponsible person. You never know what he will do. But even he will not cross certain lines, hopefully. We'll see about that. We'll see. Lavanya says CCP and USA weakening is good for India. Brain drain. CCP and USA weakening. Well, who is saying that USA is weakening anywhere? If USA weakens, well, it will cause instability in the world. CCP weakening, once again, I haven't seen evidence of CCP weakening, so I don't know. If they're putting restrictions on the American education system and visas for Indians, then it will be good for India's brain drain. But then the question is, all these bright minds who are not able to go to the US, what will we do for them in India? Will we give them the opportunities they would have got in the US? That's the question. Dr. Harshvardhan More says, why is Trump supporting Pakistan so openly and saying Pakistan has strong leadership and some people will not like what I'm saying refers to India? Well, the US has invested in Pakistan for decades. The US regards India as a potential long-term enemy and rival. Not enemy, but rival. They see that India has the potential to be the next China by a 2040 horizon, in the next 15 years. If India keeps growing at 7-8% a year for the next 15 years, we're going to be the next China. And China by then will be a very different country, a weaker country, an older country, an older population, not necessarily a weaker country, but a very different kind of country. So then the US may have two rivals instead of just one. And they guess that, if India is right now acting so nice, maybe in the future it won't act so nice. So that's why they don't want India to grow. So for that, Pakistan is brilliant. Pakistan is a great asset to have to keep India permanently off balance, permanently worried. So obviously Trump will support Pakistan for that reason. And they have significant investments that have recently come to light in Pakistan. Apparently the Americans are operating Noor Khan Air Base. Apparently America is operating the Noor Khan Air Base. So obviously if they have such investments in Pakistan, and Trump's family has recently invested in some Pakistani cryptocurrency scheme. So if they have so many investments in Pakistan and they see Pakistan as a valuable nation, then obviously they will support Pakistan. Pratish, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Even Lord, thank you for extending your membership. How did the Afrikaners make desert farms better? Well, South Africa isn't really a desert. South Africa has got good terrain, excellent climate, very nice, cool climate, very similar to the southern part of Australia. Very nice climate. It's never hot. It's pretty cold at times, and so on. And it's great for cultivation, for agriculture, etc. So the Afrikaners exploited this wonderful terrain, the wonderful quality of soil in southern Africa, and they did not build farms in deserts. They built farms in the velds of Africa, South Africa. VELDT, veld. That's the Afrikaner word for field, I would say, or prairie or something. And they also had farming operations in the Namibia region. Now, Namibia is more desertified. Let's take a look at the map. So that will give us some kind of better understanding. Let's look at the map. So this is South Africa. Now let's look at the terrain. So I would imagine that the Afrikaner farms would have been in the green areas. And as you can see, there are lots of lakes, lots of rivers, and also overall it's not really desertified. And if you look at the satellite, then I can assure you that there are lots of opportunities for using all this water for building farms. So even where you would have terrain that seems to be barren, you have plenty of water bodies. So I suppose that's what they would have exploited, all these water bodies to build their farms. And in Namibia, I'm sure the situation would have been much harder. But even there, you have lots of water bodies and so on. There is, of course, a Namibian desert over here, which obviously you don't want to farm in, but you want to get the diamonds from there. And yeah, a tremendous quantity of diamonds you find in Namibia and so on. So I think that's the deal. So, yeah. Now, Ritvik Yaduvanshi says, do you think higher Indian authorities would know what leverage Israel has over the US other than the money control? Can we develop that kind of control? I think the higher Indian authorities would know whatever leverage exists. I think they would. But I don't know what leverage exists. And that's why I can't answer the second part of your question. Can we develop that kind of control? So if I would possibly know what the higher Indian authorities know, then maybe I could give some insights as to whether we can, first of all, develop such kind of control, and if yes, then how. I have some what you would call educated guesses as to what the kind of leverage may exist, but since it's a guess and not a fact, not a proven fact, so I can't say it in open. So yeah, there you have it. Okay, Vidya Maniar says, we often talk about what's wrong with the Indian education system and end there, along with nitpicking, cribbing without action is also our classic trait. Well, if you see my episodes 28 to 31 or whatever it is, I have given detailed action plans on what needs to happen. So I am not a nitpicker, Vidiji. I have given detailed action plans in those 3 episodes, very detailed, as to what needs to happen, what changes need to be implemented. As says, Kesar mango are better than Alfonso. Maybe it's possible. I love mangoes. Tanmay Pant says, at the subatomic level, quarks of all elements are the same. So is the entire universe made up of one kind of matter? That is very similar to Mahatattva mentioned in the Puranas. What's your opinion? At the subatomic level, the quarks of all elements are the same. No, that's not the case. There are 6 kinds of quarks. Up, down, top, bottom, strange charm. See, there in my head. Up, down, top, bottom, strange charm. These are the different kinds of quarks that you have. And they are very different. They've got very different masses and so on. Let's quickly take a look at that. Yeah, I'll put that on the screen. Let me share some kind of graphic. I'm sure there are graphics available. Okay, quarks, there we have it. So yeah, up, down, but what are the masses? Very different masses, very different properties and characteristics. See, this is the masses are going to be in terms of mega electron volts per c squared. The up quark is 2.16 MeV by c squared. The down quark is 4.7 MeV. The charm quark is 1.27. The strange quark is 93.5 MeV. Now wait till you see more. The top quark is 172.5 GeV per c squared. Okay, even the charm quark is in GeV. And the bottom quark is 4.183 GeV. So the top quark is super massive, 1.72.57 GeV per c squared. The up quark is tiny in comparison to that. So the quarks are very different, very, 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 very different from each other. It is not one single tattva. There are a whole bunch of different tattvas, right? Amisha Mishra says, why Akbar is called the Great in history? Let us begin this practice of calling this individual by his real name. I mean, why give him a fake name? What was his name? His name was Jalaluddin. Jalaluddin. Let's Google. Here we have it. Okay. Jalaluddin, Turkic king. Jalaluddin. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Okay, I'm not talking about Mangaburni. I'm talking about Jalaluddin Mughal. Okay, Mughal. Mughal king. See, Akbar, Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. So if you search for Jalaluddin Turkic king, they will give you Jalaluddin Mangaburni or Jalaluddin the coward, who ran from Chinggis Khan and found refuge in India, right? But this fellow who is called who's called Akbar, his real name was Jalaluddin. So let's call him Jalaluddin. Why give him a fake name Akbar, which means great? Akbar the Great means great the great. Akbar is a Arabic word. So let's call the individual Jalaluddin. That would be a better way. I mean, that's a better practice, isn't it? It's more accurate. Anonymous says, how can we bring political unity? How were we united during Mauryan and Kanishka Empire? What steps did these magnificent rulers take to do so? Strength. Strength. You need a leader of exceptional strength. A leader who has the qualities that can unify an entire subcontinent. Very few people can do such things. The last such person who gave rise to an empire like this was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And he himself was the ruler of a reasonably modest dominion compared to what the Maratha Empire eventually became. Compared to that, the dominion that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj ruled over was modest in size. But he was the founder. It was his vision that gave rise to the Maratha Empire. So what did Kanishka the Great do? What was his... what steps did he take? He conquered, he destroyed all his enemies. He defeated everybody. What did Chandragupta Maurya do? He defeated the Nanda Empire. He grabbed power and he consolidated power. So what is the one characteristic that all these great rulers share? Strength. Strength. And not saying no. I mean, not allowing anyone to say no to you. Oh, this can't be done. No, I'll do it. That's what you need. You need a Superman, essentially, to unite the subcontinent. That's what you need. Not some random 2-bit leader who can give great speeches. I'm not mentioning anybody by name, by the way. So don't try to put words in my mouth. We have had so many so-called leaders in India in the past 80 years, who are all words, who are all talk, great at giving speeches, but no action. Thankfully, things are changing now, but we need real supermen if you want to bring back the days of the Mauryan and Kushan empires and Gupta Empire, even Chola Empire or Maratha Empire. You need a Superman. Okay. Light Yagami, thank you very much, sir, for your contribution. Appreciate it. Shiva Rajput says, Illuminati, any evidence of them existing? Well, if a story refuses to go away, maybe there's some truth to it. But what's the evidence? Flimsy thus far, but who knows? But a story that refuses to go away, that's interesting. Even Lord says, do you suspect that the steppe peoples, the Turks, the Proto-Germanics and Slavs are more aggressive from the brutal environment? How do you think the Western peoples will be if they become Islamic? Look, your environment shapes who you are. Why did all the monotheistic religions emerge from desert environments? Why? And these monotheistic religions all had very brutal practices, right? You could say have. So why did they all emerge from desert environments? Why did polytheistic religions emerge from, lush green environments where there is a lack of the horrible desert kind of terrain, right? Even so, that's one example of how your environment shapes who you are. It shapes your culture. It shapes your religious outlook. It shapes your lifestyle. Now, if you're living in the steppe, vast open grasslands with very little resources except for grass, very difficult to survive there. You need to be a real hunter, and small groups of people need to be very agile, very nomadic. They have to band together, and they have to compete with other groups of people for the little resources that exist. So if you have such an environment, you're gonna have a very aggressive mindset. So that's why the Turks were like that. Even the Mongols had that sort of existence until they were unified under one empire. So yes, your environment matters. Even the temperature matters. If you live in a very cold environment, you're gonna be much hardier than people who live in a very hot environment. If you live in a hot environment, you're gonna be lethargic. You're gonna be sluggish. You will be less productive. If you live in a cold environment, you're gonna be way more productive. You're gonna be way more active. It's just the way it is. So I think one of the disadvantages India has is the hot weather. Maybe we need to expand to a place where there is colder weather. I wonder where that could be. Just saying, okay? Not recommending anything. Light Yagami says, if the Philippines is a US vassal, so why are we selling them BrahMos? Maybe we want to wean them away. Maybe we want to wean them away from the US, perhaps. Maybe there'll be some restrictions or something. Manik says, why can't we give nukes to Taiwan to counter China? Because Taiwan is America's vassal. If we give them nukes, the Americans will figure out everything we've done, all our technological secrets. We can't do it. Millerine says, why do people justify reservations, saying it justifies the crimes done to them? They are even exempted from college fees irrespective of their annual income. This is all part of the old nonsense that we have been laboring under. It all starts from the Aryan invasion myth, that some white people came and invaded India, which was inhabited by black people. And the white people, they enslaved the natives who were apparently Dravidians, enslaved them and subjugated them and brutalized them and forced them to move to India's south, and then imposed this evil foreign Hinduism and the evil foreign caste system on everybody who lived in India. And the people who live in the north are descendants of the whites. So we are Aryan invaders, and we have been oppressing the natives for thousands of years. And we created the caste system, which means everybody who is supposedly low caste has also been oppressed by us for thousands of years. So now we have to pay. All of this nonsense comes from the Aryan invasion theory. And that's why I've been fighting against the Aryan invasion theory since 2016, whenever it was, when I wrote the first article. It's the root cause of all this nonsense is the Aryan invasion theory, which is why we need a set of reforms in the Indian education system. Otherwise, this nonsense will go on forever. And India will never rise beyond this petty nonsense. Excuse me. 1 second. Okay. Kamal Bora says, is forgetting parts of history a form of healing or a dangerous ignorance? If great empires always fall, what lessons are we failing to learn from them? Forgetting history is not a form of healing, it's a form of stupidity, or like you say, dangerous ignorance. Because if you forget parts of history that are painful, let's say the past 1,000 years of Indian humiliation, when we were occupied by foreign powers. First the barbaric Turks, and then the barbaric Europeans. Right? If we forget all that happened and why it happened and how we were oppressed and so on, then it's very easy for us to fall prey to that all over again. So it is very dangerous to forget history. We should remember everything. We should document everything so that we know where we went wrong, what things went wrong, what mistakes we did, and how we can ensure this never happens again. And also, what were the tactics and strategies of the barbarians? So we document everything, we understand more about them. Now, if great empires always fall, what lessons are we failing to learn from them? Well, there's a pattern to the rise and fall of every empire. It's a cyclical process. In China, you call it the dynastic cycles and so on. So if you study that, you will know that there are certain factors that contribute to an empire's fall. And if you avoid those factors, then you'll be fine. Shubham Dubey says, I believe our country is on the right path. How can the youth contribute more to the motherland? And help India, excuse me, and help make India great again. The youth, what can they do to contribute more to the motherland? First of all, stop all this petty infighting. This what? Whatever infighting exists, stop all that. The regional infighting, region versus region, linguistic infighting, language against language, all this is a waste of your time. What the youth should do is find whatever aptitude, whatever your best, whatever you're good at, whatever your true aptitudes are, set of characteristics, set of aptitudes, acquire the skills that are relevant to all of that, and contribute what you can to society to the best of your ability, and cooperate and collaborate in doing this. That's how you make India great again. One person individually can't do a thing, but if we all work together and collaborate and cooperate, we can achieve miracles. That's what we can do. Sumit Agarwal says green revolution destroyed high protein wheats for high yield. The green revolution was a disaster actually for India. Yeah, for a short time you can say that every Indian got more wheat to eat and all that, but it destroyed the biodiversity we had. We had so many different kinds of grains in India. Today it's everybody just eats like two grains, one kind of wheat perhaps, like 3-4 different kinds of rice. That's about it. We had, for thousands of years, people in India used to eat other grains as much as wheat and rice. Grains like bajra and jowar, they have completely been marginalized today. There are very few people who eat that. I know it's still available, but where's the demand for it? I'm sure they are actually probably healthier than the wheat that is now prevalent as a consequence of the green revolution. So the green revolution was a short-term success, but long-term, it's not been good for India. It's kind of been bad for our biodiversity and for our traditional diets. Can the French kill switch Rafale if the US pressurizes a lot? Only if they can come to India and open up the Rafale and put some kill switches inside. Gaurav Singh says, what are the major evidences that we have that prove that the age of the submerged Dwarka to be under 12,000 years old, and are there any other sunken cities from the past present in the coastlines of India? They recently discovered a new as in old sunken city off the coast of Tamil Nadu, not very far away from present day Pondicherry, under the ocean obviously. It's possibly the ancient city of Kaveri Pumpatnam, which if you look at its depth under the ocean, it's at a depth of maybe 150 meters or something. If it is at a depth of approximately, okay, let's just quickly Google it, okay? Quickly Google it so that I am giving you the right information. Submerged Kaveri Pumpatinam. Okay, let's see. Kaveri Pumpatinam. There has to be, okay, Pumpuhar they call it, because the new pronunciations have to be the way they are. Okay, so what have they found? What is this nonsense? I'm not going to pay you for this nonsense. Okay, so we get the information right here. Depth of about 50 to 100 meters, about 30 to 40 kilometers of the coast of the present-day Pumpuhar in whatever this district is. So let's say it's at a depth of about 100 meters. 50 to 100 meters, let's say 100 meters. So when was the last time that part of the ocean was above ground? And it would have been, it can't be at sea level, it has to be slightly above sea level, maybe 5 meters above sea level or whatever. So whatever time period that is, that must be about, I don't know, 10,000 years. That itself tells you how old the city is. When it comes to Dwarka, there are two pieces of evidence. First of all, the depth at which Dwarka exists, that part of the sub-ocean surface, sub-ocean region, if we go back to the ice age and all in the sea levels at the time, I think it goes back about 10,000 years. So the last time that region was above the ocean was about 10,000 years ago. And secondly, they were able to dredge out a piece of ancient wood from that sunken city, and it was carbon dated to about 8,000 something years old before today. So these are two pieces of evidence which give us some kind of evidence about how old the city possibly would be. I think the two pieces of evidence are not entirely in synchronization with each other, but they are both uh, showing that it's a very ancient city for sure. Ritvik, thank you very much and welcome to membership. Thank you. Geopolitical Dubey, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Taraka Rama says, what do you think about the Satvahanas and the role in modern Bharat? Should we follow the much better Saka Samvat calendar that follows the lunar cycle and ends with Gregorian, which has no logic? The Satvahanas are an ancient dynasty. I'm not sure what their role in modern Bharat is. Uh, so I'm not sure how to answer that question, but obviously one of the great kingdoms and dynasties in Bharat for sure. When it comes to the calendar question, I think it makes sense to follow the indigenous Indian calendar, which is much more in synchronicity with India's weather cycles, and it is way more accurate than the Gregorian calendar for sure. And when it comes to the calendars, we have different calendars. We have the Saka Samvat current calendar, which goes back about 2000 years. And if you want to really go back to the original calendar, that would be the Saptarshi calendar, which so when Megasthenes came to India, and he was the Greek ambassador in Patliputra, which is about 2,500 years ago, he said that the Indians have the Saptarshi calendar, which goes back 6,000 plus years. So 2,500 years ago, he was talking about a calendar that went back more than 6,000 years. So the actual original Indian calendar, the oldest one we know of, it started more than 8,500 years before today. So yeah, maybe we can go back to that. Stark Vincent says, where did India's looted wealth go? Funded the US? No, India's wealth funded the British Empire and their military expansion and their colonial enterprises and their empire building enterprises. So it funded all their colonial activities, all their imperial activities. India was the crown jewel of the British Empire. And whatever wealth was amassed by various families, that it became part of it was redistributed all over the place in Europe, because these families don't belong to one nation. They belong, for example, the royal families in Europe, whether it's the Dutch royal family or the Russian erstwhile royal family, the British royal family, or the Spanish royal family, or whatever else, they're all part of the same extended family. They all have blood relationships. So all the wealth would be eventually redistributed all over the place, and it's impossible to find where it is today. And I'm sure it's made some families incredibly wealthy, and maybe these are the families that are part of the deep state and control the world. Possibly. Divya Sharma says, can China flood our Far East by opening dams? Watch episode 3 of Geostrategy with Abhijit Chavda on this channel, in which I have answered this question in extreme detail. The short answer is no. Ritvik Yaduvanshi says, did the sun actually set on the British Empire? As you have mentioned, their headquarters moved from Britain to Washington. It means the empire survived. The empire thrives. No, when they said that the sun never set on the British Empire, it means that the British Empire had possessions all across the world. So you never had a time when there was one part of the British Empire which, see, it means that wherever you were in the world, wherever the sun was shining, some part of it was shining on a British Empire asset. That's what it means. But like you say, I like referring to me, which I have said that the headquarters has merely moved from London to Washington, DC. It means the empire has absolutely survived and it's thriving. It has simply been rebranded. The exact same empire exists. It's simply been rebranded. Or rather, it's been hidden. It's been hidden away. Okay, so the US is the leader of the free world. So that is the title they've given themselves, which means that they are the inheritors of the British Empire, the leader of the free world, superpower. They have more than 700 extraterritorial military bases, and all they control all the supply chains and trade routes and everything, and that's how they rule the world. That's the hallmark of an empire. That's what an empire does, wherever it, in whichever geographical region it controls. And the US does it all over the world. So it's a superpower. It's the inheritor of the British Empire, and the British Empire still continues, but now it's called whatever it's called today. It's the US Empire now. I think I already answered this question. I'm not sure why it's coming again. But anyway, thank you, sir. Jai Tiwari says, any geopolitical and trade benefits of having Sindh? It's part Sindh. Well, first of all, geopolitical benefit. One major port returns to India, Karachi. Karachi was called Meen Nagar 2000 years ago, when it was ruled by the great Kshatrapa, Mahakshatrapa Nahapana. Have you heard of Nahapana? Great king. No one remembers him. He was the ruler of the Indian West, of the western part of India. And one of the great ports he ruled over was Meena Nagar, which was Karachi. So if we get Sindh back, we get Karachi, which is a great port, wonderful port. We would love to have it. So we can trade from there, and we can also have naval base over there. So yeah, that's one example, and I'm sure there's many more. And of course, beyond geopolitics and trade, it's part of our ancient civilizational heritage. This region, it's always been part of Bharatvarsh. We should have it back. Harjap, oh, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Komal Bora says, did leaders within India's own freedom struggle sabotage or suppress Subhash Chandra Bose because he challenged Gandhi and Nehru's dominance? I may have to give you some evidence. Shall we? Okay. Nehru letter about Bose. Now this, yeah, the BBC will call it a fake letter. Obviously, they will call it a fake letter. And Alt News will say it is fake. And the Hindu will say it's fake. Right? So where's the letter? Can you please show us the letter? They want... Okay, so over here, they've given a letter. They've shown a letter with the spelling mistakes to make it look like it's fake. But let's see if there's the original image somewhere. Here. Okay, let's see. So over here, it's clearly that it's clear that there is a spelling mistake over here, which Mr. Nehru would never do. Mr. Nehru would never do a spelling mistake. He was very fond of the British, etc. But what does it say over here? Dear Mr. Attlee, I understand from a reliable source that Subhash Chandra Bose, your war criminal, has been allowed to enter Russian territory by Stalin. This is clear treachery and a betrayal of your faith by the Russians. As Russia has been an ally of the British Americans, it should not have been done. Please take note of it and do what you consider proper and fit. Yours sincerely, Jawaharlal Nehru. So I don't see any date, etc. over here. And in this letter, it says that Mr. Bose is a war criminal, or your war criminal. And so on and so forth. I'm not sure how true or reliable this is. Lots of fact checkers are calling this a forgery. The BBC is calling this a fake letter. So, but it's clear. Even if this letter, let's say it's fake, it's clear that there was a tremendous amount of animosity towards Mr. Bose when it came to the leaders of the Indian National Congress, whether it was Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Nehru, or whoever else. They didn't like him. They wanted him out of the way because he wanted a very different kind of India from what they wanted. They wanted an India which was, even after so-called independence, it would remain the same way the British had left it. And Mr. Bose wanted a completely different India. So, yeah. Vidhi Maniar says, since you once said the British had destroyed our food ecosystem and changed our food habits, then what was our original food system habits? What was it like? So it's very difficult to tell you in a few minutes, but it's a good question that you're raising. So let me try and give you some direction as to how you can do your own research about this. So let's see. Okay, Manas Ullasa. It's an ancient book. It was written in the 1100s by the Kalyani Chalukya king Someshwara III. Okay. Now, if you want to read this thing, maybe we can try this one. We won't have it, but the Americans will have it. And let's wait for it to open. And here we have it. So it's gonna go into all kinds of things, including food. Okay, this seems to be the Sanskrit version of it. Do they have an English translation somewhere? I'm sure there's, okay, maybe on the Internet Archive you may get it. But anyway, my point is that if you read this book, and it's available pretty much for free online, then you will be able to get insights into what our food habits were like back in the day. So this book, what's it about? It talks about, once again, this is Wikipedia, which is not necessarily a reliable source of information. It always distorts Indian history, but let's quickly take a look over here for the sake of saving time. It talks about how to gain a kingdom, how to do governance, economics, infrastructure, architecture, medicine, cuisine, ornaments, perfumery, love games, sports, jewelry, painting, music, and dance. And it has recipes, etc. It describes foods that continue to be part of modern Indian tradition: dosaka, idarika, vataka, parika, shirvata, dahi vada, and so on. Meat dishes, obviously you will not have meat of cow, horse, elephant, parrot, peacock, or eggs, but you have other kinds of meat dishes and so on. So if you read this book, then you will have a good understanding of what our culinary practices were like maybe 1,000 years ago. Now this is something that maybe more applicable to the cuisine of southern India, but it does give you a good idea of how old ancient Indian cuisine was like. So Shreyas says Rafales performed well in Operation Sindoor, but France didn't openly support India. Why the silence despite the jet's success? Why does France need to support India? This is a matter that doesn't concern France. India and Pakistan fight. How does it concern France? Tomorrow, France and Belgium fight. Should we start supporting one party or another? We stay out of it, my friends. Why does France have to support India or say anything? The fact that they have sold Rafales to India is enough to count as support. Why are Indians obsessed with words? Oh, but they didn't say anything. They sold Rafales to India. That is the kind of support that counts as support for me. I don't care about words or absence of words. Please learn to look at the world in a different way. Only actions matter. Words are meaningless, pointless. Gaurav Singh says, is there any geological evidence of people living in India during the Ice Age? Was it an advanced civilization as claimed by Dilesh Oak? Look, evidence of people living in a geographical region is not geological evidence. It's called archaeological evidence. Okay. We have found evidence. Okay, let's look. We know about people living in India before the Ice Age. Now, have we found skeletons of ancient Indians from during the Ice Age time? I'm not sure about it. I've not looked into it, but I remember I had I had read a research paper about people living in the Gangetic, in the Ganga Valley region about 30,000 years ago. They had found skeletons, all 6 feet tall, men, women, etc., and so on. So we have evidence of ancient Indians from about 30,000 years ago. We also have evidence of agriculture. Now, agriculture. And I have short videos on this channel in which I speak about the agricultural evidence. We have evidence of agriculture in India that dates back 17,000 years, which is smack bang in the period of the Ice Age. So agriculture only happens when humans do it, right? So yes, we have archaeological evidence of humans, people living in India during the Ice Age. And why would anybody be surprised? India was the original founder zone of the out of Africa migration. So we are the originators of agriculture. Agriculture did not emerge in the so-called Fertile Crescent 10,000 years ago. It may have emerged there independently or not, but it first emerged in India, in the Indian subcontinent, at least 17,000 years before that, which obviously tells you that we were an advanced civilization. So I think that should answer your question, sir. This has nothing to do with either geopolitics or history or science, so I will not take it. I think I've been very clear and I've put out the pinned comment, right? So why do this, sir? Why? I've said I will only take questions about history, geopolitics, science. So please, let's stick to that. Ritvik Yaduvanshi says, will we ever arm Hindus in border countries facing persecution? How long must they flee? If government won't act, should private forces? Time to revive warrior spirit and grow in strength, even demographically. Listen, if we... Okay, now how do I deal with this? This is again a religious question, right? I think India should provide all assistance that is needed to Hindus who are facing persecution, whether it is in East Pakistan or West Pakistan or wherever else, or whether it is Hindus who are being persecuted by Rohingyas in Myanmar. India should provide all possible, all necessary assistance to them, including arming them. And I don't think there is anything wrong with that. So I think the government should do that. If the government, for whatever reason, is not able to do that, maybe private forces can do it. So yeah, I would agree with you. Jay Tiwari says, can India rise without compromising dharma? Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no dharma without artha, by the way. So artha is necessary. There cannot be dharma without artha. There can't be dharma without money. So India needs to rise. And once we rise, dharma will be strengthened. So I think, yes, India can rise without compromising dharma. Thoughts on Ashton Hall? The guy on Instagram, I follow him on Instagram. He's very entertaining. Always some new video every day. Yeah, he's fun. He's fun to watch. Okay, Ritvik Yaduvanshi is giving a recommendation of a podcast. Well, thank you for your recommendation. Thank you, sir. Okay, so now let's take some more questions. Sayande says, how does an air defense system identify between a friendly aircraft and a hostile aircraft? You have something called an IFF system. IFF system. What does it mean? If, friend, or foe. So it's an electronic system which tells you that this thing that I'm seeing on the screen isn't my thing or the other guy's thing. So that's how it is done. And McLevin says, PM Modi to mediate between Elon Musk and Trump. That'll be fun, won't it? That will be fun. Mr. Modi mediating between Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump. Okay, let's take some more questions. Did Mussolini, says Tadmai Pant, also believe in racial theory? Well, Mussolini did believe that the Italians were some kind of a superior race, for sure. So he kind of believed in what this Aryan, this fake Aryan thing was of the Nazis. The Nazis believed that they were of the Aryan race, the superior Übermensch race, and all white people were Aryans. And the Italians are also part of it because they were the continuation or the in the legacy of the Roman Empire. Obviously, this Aryan thing was completely it was a lie, obviously, and it's something that the West stole from India, but it is what it is. So yeah, Mussolini also kind of believed in all of that. Okay, Raj says 1947 independence or just transfer of power. I think I've said this a million times. I've been saying this for 4 years. 1947 was a transfer of power from one set of crooks to a different set of crooks. All right. There we have it. Okay, Vishal says, what's the Riemann hypothesis and why is it so significant? Well, the Riemann hypothesis is a conjecture in number theory. It's about the distribution of prime numbers. And it says that all non-trivial zeros of the Riemann zeta function have a real part of 1/2. That's the Riemann hypothesis, and it's something that Carl Riemann put forth along. I think his name was Carl Riemann, was it? He put that up a long time ago. When was that? I'm sure it's more than a century ago. And his name was not Carl Riemann. His name was Bernard Riemann. And this has stood the test of time for, I think, 150 or so years. And it's Grigory Perelman who was able to finally solve it. So it's significant because it's one of the it was significant because it was one of the longest standing hypothesis that stood the test of time. Nobody was able to either prove or disprove it until the Russian genius Grigory Perelman was able to finally prove it. And the Chinese mathematician, what was his name? Yao. I forget his name. The Chinese names are so hard to remember. But a very famous Chinese mathematician tried to steal Perelman's achievement, because Perelman did not publish this in a peer-reviewed paper, in a peer-reviewed journal. He put his paper up on the physics archive, where anybody can put a physics paper, essentially, or mathematics paper, or scientific paper. So he just put it up on the physics on the archive, and that was it. So the Chinese guy, let me quickly show you the evidence of that. Manifold. What's it called? Manifold legacy or manifold destiny? Manifold destiny. So what was this guy's name? Yeah, Xingtung Yao. This fellow tried to steal Perelman's achievement. Anyhow, so that's what happened. Yeah. So that's about the Poincaré conjecture. What else do we have? Kamal Bora says, how could a religious system claiming cosmic truth justify untouchability and hereditary inequality? I'm not sure which Abrahamic system you're talking about, but no Abrahamic system claims cosmic. I think they all claim cosmic truth. I'm not sure. Do the Abrahamics have untouchability? Because we don't have it. Hereditary inequality, the Abrahamics do have it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's what happens, What can I say? Jay Tiwari, well, thank you so much for becoming a member. Shrikant says, don't want Karachi with that population. Secondly, Kavari, any good investing or import? I have no idea what all this is. I agree that Karachi has that population. I know, a radicalized population. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to have that population. I'm talking about the port. The port is great, but the population is deeply problematic. So I completely agree with you on that. So we would like the port, but the population is very problematic, and yeah, so that's an issue. Second, Kavari, any good investing or import engine technology? Kaveri engine you're talking about? Kaveri engine. Okay, Kaveri engine, we're going to keep working on it, I suppose. And if we get some kind of technology transfer proposal, maybe from Russia, maybe from France, we can consider it. If it is a proper proposal with full technology transfer, we should go for it, no matter how expensive it is. Okay. And does the US have super intelligent or sentient AI? I have no idea. I suppose they have very powerful AIs that nobody knows about, but I don't know about whether they are sentient or not. Harjab says, my thoughts on the ER is equal to EPR paper in physics. The ER is equal to EPR paper, the concept. It's a proposition in theoretical physics, which suggests a fundamental connection between two very different concepts. The Einstein-Rosen bridges, which is ER, and the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, which is the EPR. What's an Einstein-Rosen bridge? I've spoken about this so many times. It's called colloquially a wormhole. A wormhole. So ER is wormholes that connect black holes. EPR is the quantum entanglement of particles. So where you measure one particle's properties and you instantly know the properties of the other particle, right? That sort of thing. So the ER is equal to EPR concept, say, it postulates that these two seemingly unrelated phenomena are essentially the same thing, essentially two sides of the same coin. So that's what the ER is equal to EPR thing is, and I think it's a pretty solid concept. Okay, now I'll do this for another 5 minutes and then I'm done. So in case you're planning to purchase super chats, please stop, because we are at the end, almost at the end of today's episode. Pranay Kumar says India needs artistic infrastructure, new temples now. I would love to have that. Yes, I agree. Rohan is talking about religion. I have said that I will talk about geopolitics, history, and science today, so I cannot take this question. Please, if I have said it very clearly, why do you have to do this? You're wasting your money, sir. I am not going to discuss these things. Joy Tiwari says, if you were India's PM for 10 years, what grand strategy would you implement to decisively counter China and make India the leading Asian power? If I were India's PM for 10 years, I would ensure that I become India's PM for 100 years. That's number one. Number two, I mean, that's a joke, obviously, right? I would, do whatever it takes to have as rapid economic growth as possible, as rapid and as massive as possible. Whatever roadblocks exist, I would make it my life's mission to eradicate those roadblocks. And long-term things I would do, I would reform India's education system. I would launch a war on corruption. I would be very unpopular as a consequence, but I would do all these things. Only then will we become India's leading power. Otherwise, it won't happen. Okay, Bhargav says, although India stopped quite early, India did announce new normal. You're talking about Operation Sindoor. Even the MP delegations are not trying to convince the world. So is India finally getting ready to stand up for itself against the West? I think India is rising. India is becoming more capable. India is becoming, as a consequence, more self-confident. The MP delegations, well, it's not a bad idea, especially to the global South nations. When it comes to sending an MP delegation to the US, I think it's a waste of time. The US is not going to be convinced. They don't care about what India says. Okay. But sending MP delegations to the global South countries is a very good idea. So that was great. And we have indeed announced a new normal. We have indeed announced a completely new doctrine when it comes to Pakistan. The Pakistanis know it now. If there is a terrorist attack someday in the future anywhere in India, it means war with Pakistan. Right? So yes, India it's a different India. India is changing. India is evolving. I'm not sure if India is standing by itself against the West, but India is showing to the West that you have been using this terrorist puppet of yours against us for so long, but now sooner or later we're going to smash it. We're going to end it completely, and we are not worried about your nuclear blackmail. See, understand now. It's becoming very clear now that the Pakistani nuclear blackmail is actually Western nuclear blackmail against us. So, Aryan Tyagi says, Sadhguruji once said in India Today conclave, okay, India should have elections once in 8 years until we reach at least $12 trillion economy. What are my views on that? Okay, not a bad idea. We can try it. There's no harm in trying something different. What we have been doing for the past 70, 80 years, it's not worked out great. So there's no harm in trying a different approach. Or maybe, well, what's the advantage of having an 8-year cycle instead of 5-year cycle? You're going to have more political stability. Right? You're going to have more political stability if one administration is in power for 8 years instead of 5 years. That is assuming that we don't have the stupid Westminster system in which you have coalition government sometimes, in which there is no guarantee that a government can last 8 years. But if you can guarantee that a government lasts 8 years and you have an 8-year cycle, I think it's great. We should try that out for sure. So I agree with that. I mean, it's a good idea. Okay, with that, let us end today's live stream. I really appreciate all the questions. I thought the questions were wonderful, most of them. So thank you so much for all your questions. We're going to have more of these live streams next week. We're going to have, I think, 2 or 3 1-hour live streams and one regular 3-hour live stream next week. And next week's big live stream will be on Saturday, hopefully. I'll probably be in good health. So once again, thank you so much, everybody. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep raising your standards, and I'll see you very soon in next week's episodes, which will all be live episodes. Thank you so much. Good day, good night. Take care. Bye bye.